And it's a ticket talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it, get it. And it's a ticket talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. I'm a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it, get it, get it, get it. Comma and a comma. Gotta get it, get it. And it's a ticket talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. I'm a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it, get it, get it, get it. Comma and a comma. Gotta get it.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the 2024 GPVWC Race of Champions, the finals. Because yesterday we saw 32 drivers go head to head in order to determine the final 16 places available for today's action. We also have plenty more cars on show for you today, including a brand new Caterham Academy car, which we are about to introduce in just a few moments' time. There you can see the knockout format that we will be using today and all of the qualified drivers. We do have a couple of changes to the schedule, a couple of drivers who were knocked out yesterday but have actually been reintroduced due to drivers pulling out. We will talk about those as the races go along. But we are slightly behind schedule, so without further ado, let's get started with our very first race of the day, which will be Sandeep Singh versus Dominic Kurashavin. So, Sandeep Singh yesterday defeated the likes of, let me check my my entry list, Singh defeated Damir Karatko in order to go through. He is our 6th ranked driver, our 6th seeded driver. Dominic Kurashavin actually performed an underdog victory, pulling out a win against Lucas Theilen to move on to this round. He is only the 22nd seeded driver. And there you see our brand new Caterham Academy car, which will be a fantastic little nimble machine to fling around the tight and twisty Race of Champions circuit. It works in the same way that it worked yesterday, with one driver on the left, in this case Sandeep Singh, one driver on the right. Sorry, I think Singh's on the right, isn't it? Nope, Dominic Kurashavin is on the right. My apologies, we will get there eventually, but this is of course the first race of the day. And then each of these drivers has to do 2 laps of the course, and a lap includes both sides of the course. So hopefully that's simple enough. I am once again being joined by Alex Foulkes, and the stream is once again being provided by Remco de Zeeuw. But Alex, it's good to have you back again. We're already underway with the action, as you can see. Who have you got your eyes set on for today's action?
Well, we were talking about it before we got live, and I think there's just no way you could possibly call how it's going to go today. There's just so many competitive drivers. I mean, we've got Alex Lahoo, Jan Granqvist, Sandeep Singh, who's currently racing, and I wouldn't even discount some of the lower seeded drivers as well. I mean, Simon Frelich as well had an impressive performance last year. Oh, Kurashavin's ahead on the first lap. I just want to point that out. So Singh not having the greatest of starts. So it might not be Singh in contention here. There's still time to pull it back, of course. I don't know when we're going to the best of 5 format. Is that only for the finals?
That's just the final. Just the final.
Oh, that's a shame. So I think it would be nice to drag out the semi-finals a little bit. But yeah, Singh still behind. We do have 8 races before we move on to the quarterfinals. And some pull out, some surprise. Ooh, that was a big slide. But some surprise victories, I think, yesterday. Notably, Kurashavin, who are watching currently, won against Lucas Theilen as the underdog, a very large underdog, you could say. 22nd seed versus the 11th seed, and now it's got even harder for Kurashavin. 22nd seed versus 6th seed, but he will win the first race.
Fantastic. Dominic Kurashavin pulls out a 1-0 lead, and we start the day with an underdog success story. But of course, it is a best of 3, so he will have to do it all over again if he is to move on to our quarterfinals. But what an excellent performance there from Dominic Kurashavin. You can see the cars disappearing because that's how you reset the cars on a simulator. And this time around, we will have Kurashavin on the left and Singh on the right. One thing I do want to note, actually, because we were talking yesterday about any potential advantage the drivers might get from being put on a certain side of the grid. Of course, some of that is mitigated by the fact that it is a best of 3, so you both get a chance to go from each side of the grid. But also, we were told before we went live today that the side you start on is actually determined by the lower seeded driver. So in this case, Dominic Kurashavin would have been given the choice as to whether to start on the left-hand side or the right-hand side for his first heat, and therefore also the tiebreaker if it was to go to that. So I think that's a pretty fair way of doing it. It means that no one really has too much of an advantage from starting on a side of the grid that they know better. And it also means that the lower seeded driver, if there is any advantage whatsoever, has the choice of position.
Yeah, I do think starting on that right-hand side just gives you a bit of a nicer momentum through your lap. I mean, Zeeuw here will go nicely into a fast left-hander immediately, whereas if you're on the left side, it's a slow, sluggish right side hairpin, but underway for the second heat here, and it seems like a relatively equal start. Kurashavin just so slightly ahead, and here's that sweeping left-hander. Zeeuw's a bit wide and a bit slidey, but the good thing about these Caterhams is they're very small, very nimble, and I think you are just able to absolutely throw them into the corners. I'd love to get an onboard here through this sort of faster section that Zeeuw's going to be driving through, and oh, look at that driver cam. And yeah, you can just see just how much steering input it requires to get it turned. That means it's low grip, but also you're able to throw it into the corner. And it seems like Kurashavin has a bit of an advantage here. We have got a benchmark roughly for where we want the drivers to be as you're crossing that finish line. And it's about that left-hander if you're watching it from Zeeuw's perspective, from the left side of the circuit. And that should be pretty close now as we cross towards crossing the finish line for the first lap. Kurashavin seems to have a slight advantage across the line, and it is a gap of 0.365 according to RaceView. Not completely accurate, but that's what we can guess so far. It is saying Kurashavin is ever so slightly ahead, and that advantage is his to lose now.
Yeah, sorry about that. I am back. So this is Dominic Kurashavin that we're watching, and we're on board with now. These Caterhams ever so slightly slower around a lap than the Mazdas were yesterday. Of course, the beautiful Mazda MX-5 Super Cups that we were using in yesterday's qualifiers. I'm about to sneeze again. Sorry, Alex. Could you take over for a minute?
I don't know what you just said, because somehow I did it yesterday, and I was sort of, okay, that makes sense. I made a silly mistake. But I've left again. I keep going and opening Discord on my taskbar. I go into my Discord, push up, and then Kurashavin wins the second race, actually. Knocks out Sandeep Singh. So
amazing
really
stuff.
Is a underdog come-up story here. 22nd seeded driver beats out Sandeep Singh, although I think this could be a problem for Kurashavin, because we have heard that there may be a bit of time conflict here, so it may not even matter that Kurashavin has won this race here.
Yeah, well, I'm very much hoping that the time conflict has been resolved, but we'll update you on that if we need to. I'll quickly update you on something. Oh, hello to Ed Hunter, our first chatter in the YouTube comments, saying, Kurashavin the underdog, ? Isn't he a Super League driver? Technically, yes, he did race in the last race at Brazil, but I think you're thinking of someone else, because he did not score points in that race, and you seem to be implying that Kurashavin is a Super League point scorer. Singh has done Super League, and is significantly more experienced in Super League than Kurashavin. And Kurashavin is also the lower seeded driver. So that was our first underdog upset of the day, and a fantastic job from Dominic Kurashavin. All right, so it looks like our next race now is going to be the third seeded driver, Mark Schluter, versus the top qualifier, Michael Falkenhayn. Now, Falkenhayn got an automatic bye yesterday because he was supposed to be up against Shimon Kanda, but Kanda unfortunately pulled out at the last minute. But definitely expect Michael Falkenhayn to be a real contender today, because he is one of the drivers who had to qualify for his place in this event, and therefore we know that he has the pace to do so. I was also sent some screenshots earlier by our cameraman Remco de Zeeuw, pointing out just how many laps he has been putting in on the practice server. Hundreds and hundreds of laps in both the Caterham Academy car and the Ford Capri that we will be using later on. So Michael Falkenhayn is clearly taking this event very seriously indeed, which he will need to do in order to have a chance against Mark Schluter. Schluter, of course, is our third placed Super League driver. He had a very strong battle with Tom Stevens all the way through this championship, winning 3 Grand Prix, including the last one at Brazil. And as a result of that, comes into this with his head held high, especially since he did have to defeat a driver yesterday on to earn his place in this. He defeated Eric Gumedi, who was the 30th seeded driver. So 2 real contenders here, Schluter versus Falkenhayn. Schluter should be the favourite. Falkenhayn is technically not seeded as well. He's showing up as being the 14th seed on the site, but that's only because he replaced the driver who would originally have been the 14th seed. Of course, Schluter, the 3rd seeded driver due to his Super League achievements. So definitely expect Schluter to be good here, but Alex, just how much does practice mean for an event like this, where they're racing unfamiliar cars on a relatively unfamiliar track?
Well, I mean, that's sort of the premise of Racer Champions, is to put two drivers into equal cars, equal machinery, on a relatively equal circuit. And I think practice is going to be mightily important, considering it is in essence a hot lap competition, provided that we don't have crashes and we don't have something that happened yesterday.
Yes.
Lorenzo Eterovich spun it round and just couldn't get going again, hit by Craig Patterson. That was quite an interesting watch. Patterson will be the 4th race of the day against Tom Stevens, and he's also spelt wrong in the graphic. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. There's an R in there somewhere for you to find, I'm pretty sure. Or am I wrong?
I don't think there is, actually. I think it is just Patterson. But
Patterson?
I will double
swear
check
I've seen
that.
Patterson everywhere.
No, I tell you what,
Really?
on the site as well, it's Patterson. So
We got the site back.
sorry, I'm checking the spreadsheet.
Oh.
I'm saying site because it's on my Chrome browser. My apologies.
I got excited that we could have a look at the site, but no, it's still down.
Yeah, I mean we've got people working behind the scenes on that, I'm sure. But yes, it is temporarily closed for maintenance. But yeah, definitely look out for that race later on. Also involved Alex Laho, who was 3rd last year. Oliver Taras, who did that bunny hop yesterday, but aside from that was pretty darn good. And then along with those drivers, we have... Actually, I'll update you on those as we go along, because we're about to get going with Falkenhayn versus Schluter. Falkenhayn will be on driver's left in that turquoisey coloured car. Schluter will be on driver's right in the blue car with the black stripes. I think Falkenhayn's car is more aquamarine than turquoisey, actually, but there you go. Driver's left.
Color.
Yeah, similar colour to our logo. That is a pretty good way of putting it, actually. And there are the red lights, so once again, when they go out, we will be underway for our 2nd race with the Caterham Academy cars. Off we go! Looked to be a slightly better start from Falkenhayn, but I tell you what, that was pretty even as they crossed the start line there. And look at the drift that they're putting on through the corner. These cars seemingly a little bit understeery, at least through the mid part of the corner, but you definitely can kick out the tail if you want to. Still, I mean, it's looking to be a lot more kind of on rails than the Mazda was yesterday. And I wonder if that means that the driving style is going to be significantly different. I think you'll probably need to take the corners a little bit tighter just to keep the car within those lines. And you can see how much understeer there is from on board with Mark Schluter. Those front tyres turning in way before the corner. And I can almost, I mean, I've got my sound turned off, but I can almost imagine the screeching you can hear as you apply the brakes here.
Yeah, I think this is one of those cars where you want to go into the sound settings and turn the tire screech down. Falkenhayn with the advantage after the first lap. I'll get you the exact gap in just a second. Never mind, I'll
Yes.
close my race view.
Okay, well, race
it
view is saying
point 4.
0.394, so that's basically 0.4 of a second to the advantage of Michael Falkenhayn. So yet again, the lower seeded driver taking the advantage from the off, but they still have to complete this race, of course, for him to go 1-0 up. We're on board with the leader now as we go under the rock arch and through the banked turn. The wall juts out there on the right, and if of course you didn't manage to make the stream yesterday, this will be the first you've seen of this track, at least this year, because it's the same course that we were using a year ago. You don't have to worry too much about track limits in that little right-hand flick that we just saw. The game doesn't seem to mind too much. And then you head through this tunnel, and soon we will see who takes the first victory, and it is convincingly there, Michael Falkenhayn. That would have been well over a second. And across the line, the gap is... come on, race view, 1.257.
Oh, wow.
So that is a 1-0 victory for Michael Falkenhayn. But of course, we need to wait for the second race because it is still a best of 3. But yeah, that looked pretty decisive there from Michael Falkenhayn. And Alex, our Super League and Super Lights drivers seem to be faltering so far.
Yeah, I think it's necessarily a matter of not practicing and not really taking the event as seriously as their competitors. That's only speculation, though. I have absolutely no idea. I know Falkenhayn does tend to get a lot of practice in, does tend to thrive in the hot lapping sort of idea, and he has set the fastest time so far out of anyone that's set a time on the server. Of course, only 4 people now. Karshavin, Singh, and Schluter trail him. Schluter's lap time actually hasn't been updated properly, but it was the slowest overall. This is considering the second lap, not the first lap, because that's about 5 seconds slower. So it's not truly representative of what we're going to see, as we hopefully are about to see the lights for the second race.
Indeed. So this time, of course, it is Schluter on the left and Falkenhayn on the right. You can see the novice cross on the back of both cars. I don't think these are indeed novice drivers. That's just the Caterham Academy mod that we're using. Have you ever seen Caterham Academy racing in real life, Alex? Because I have, and...
I've seen the clips where they've hit the mirrors off.
Yeah, well, I tell you what, so I saw it in Silverstone, I think last year, 2023. And I was watching from Woodcote, but I could see through to Luffield and Brooklands. And by the end of the academy race, I swear there were like 10 wheel wings just kind of lying at the edge of the circuit. No safety cars or anything, but bodywork was going everywhere.
Yeah, but those little wheel covers on top of the front wheels are a bit flimsy. They're not really held on by anything other than a bolt, some super glue, and I think hopes and dreams. From what I can tell, with a little bit of contact will do that to them. Although I feel like the mod we've got is probably a bit less nimble than in real life. Falkenhayn again with the advantage, not as much as last time, only about 0.161 in the way of advantages. And for the first time, I think, someone on the left side, or starting on the left side, has got an advantage to their opponent, because usually if you look at race view, it's a bit weird and a bit inverted, and it shows the gap wrong, is what I've found. Oh no, it's still backwards.
Yeah, it's just because of the way the laps work, where one side of the track is always faster than the other. But anyway, it is still Falkenhayn that has the advantage, but like you said, not by that much in this race. Big slide from Schluter though. That might well give it the way of Michael Falkenhayn, who has put in so much practice for this race, and I would say very much deserves to come out on top if he manages. And look at that, Michael Falkenhayn defeats our Super League third placed runner. And that means, of course, that he will go through to the round of 16, and we will see no more of Mark Schluter in this competition. A major upset, and our second one from just 2 matchups today. Fantastic stuff, Alex.
Yeah, I think this might not be what we were expecting it to be. I mean, we were looking at just the order, and we were looking at the drivers before, and it just shows that seed is not necessarily representative of the driver's skill or where they'll end up. As that does confirm our first quarterfinals match, which will be Michael Falkenhayn versus Dominic Kurashavin. That will be happening at 8:30 in roughly an hour and a bit from now, an hour and a quarter or so. But we still have 6 more round of 16 rounds coming up. Next, Drangoon versus Szymon Fralik, and we've still got quite a while until we reach those substitutes. So don't have to worry about those for now.
Yes, indeed. So, Jan Dragoon yesterday defeated, I'm just getting my my list up again, defeated Kurt Hortjav, and he is the 7th seeded driver, having qualified courtesy of his Super Lights results. As for Szymon Fralik, he qualified courtesy of his FS1 results. That makes him the 10th seeded driver. He defeated Robin Merling yesterday, but definitely look out for Szymon, because last year, when we ran this event, he was 2nd overall and was only defeated by Jake Dennehan in the final. Jake Dennehan is, of course, not here this year, so is anyone standing in Szymon Fralik's way? Well, of course, he will have to get through all of these rounds, the round of 16, the quarterfinals, the semi-finals first, before getting to the final, where we will find out if he really does stand a chance. But I would say Szymon Fralik, one of our major contenders coming into this one, despite only being the 10th seeded driver. It's also working out that if the seeding system means anything to you, this is the first race we've had where both drivers have been in the top 10 as far as seeds are concerned. So technically, this should be our most competitive race so far. I'm not entirely convinced that the seeding is entirely representative, especially with drivers qualifying, having to show pace just to get in, and other drivers being invited based on other results. But yes, this should be a good matchup here between Jan Dragoon and Szymon Fralik, and I don't think that the top seeded driver in this is necessarily the favourite, Alex.
No, definitely not. Szymon Fralik, with the experience of last year, does seem to be, I don't want to say the favourite, but definitely the one with the more experience and a bit more time, I'd say, spent on the track. But also, that lower seed does mean he has been able to choose which side of the circuit he starts on, so that's maybe a slight advantage for him. Maybe he knows if he's stronger on a certain side. Who knows? As we're about to get underway, Jan Drangoon against Szymon Fralik, and Fralik's got the better start already in that black Caterham. I say that, he moves straight into the outside wall there, and I think that's the first time we've seen someone outbrake themselves into that first hairpin, although he's still got plenty of time to sort of redeem himself. And just looking at the steering angle here, it seems a lot smoother than other drivers so far. And it seems to be nursing that Caterham around the circuit and just trying to get it into the corner and sliding a lot more than other drivers. So I think he's relying more on a loose rear end to compensate for that oversteer, rather than absolutely hammering the car and trying to coerce it into getting around the corner.
Yeah, I'm liking this driving style from Szymon Fralik. You were right to say that it's very, very smooth. But then again, I'm also expecting Jan Dragoon to be one of the smoothest. Look at them across the line. Fralik just has the advantage. Okay, going on to the second lap. The gap is 0.2 of a second, so there you go. That is entirely possible to overcome, but only if you get it absolutely right. Here is Jan Dragoon. Now, the reason I know that he is a nice and smooth driver is because I have known him and his driving style for much longer than he has been involved in GPVWC for. He actually came from the Assetto Corsa platform, or at least that's where I knew him from first, when he was racing in the hilariously named Formula Trout League. He was doing very, very well over there, and then decided to jump ship to R-Factor 2 and skipped straight up to Super League. Completely missed all of the other career ladder areas, went straight up to Super League. Had a bit of a tough start. I reckon he was struggling to adapt slightly, but managed to adapt eventually and really came of age this year in Super Lights. And as he goes into the across the line, where is Szymon Fralik? Well, something happened to Shimon Frelick there. I was waiting to see where he was, and he was 4 seconds back. So Jan Dragoon goes 1-0 up, and we have no idea why, but I assume that Shimon Frelick had some sort of an incident there, because Jan Dragoon suddenly gained about 5 seconds on him.
That was strange. We got away from Frelick, and then he's nowhere to be seen. He did have the advantage as well, which is the strange thing. But oh no, for Simon Frelick, he now has his work cut out for him. He has to win 2 in a row to advance to the quarter-finals, and will be the first registered in our second running of the quarter-finals. But yeah, we've got 2 more to go, and Frelick must win this to get any chance of continuing on. And I think it would be a bit of a shock to see the more experienced, I don't want to say more experienced, but more experienced with the Race Champions event driver being knocked out here.
Absolutely. Once again, hello to everyone in the YouTube chat. We've got plenty more people involved now, so I do apologize that I can't keep up with everything that's going on. But hello to Kaikera, to Kentry, to Aviation, to Mateus Pishan, Domenico Scarpelli is there. This is great stuff. Anyway, look at the lights. When they go out, we will once again be underway, and it is all or nothing now for Shimon Frelick, last year's Race of Champions runner-up. On the right-hand side, driver's right, they're dead even going across the start line, or separated by 4 thousandths according to that split there, which I think is accurate, but really that's nothing. And it's all down to the driving ability now. Shimon Frelick wide in, tight out. That's a line I don't think I've seen through that corner yet, at least not in this car. And now heads through the tunnel to end the first half a lap. The Caterhams, I've never really thought Caterhams have a particularly impressive tone to them, at least in terms of the engine noise, but I think anything would reverberate through that tunnel and give you a good shock if you were standing on the other side of it. That was a little wide there from Frelick. This hasn't looked like the cleanest of laps from him so far. I wonder if last year's runner-up is under a little bit of pressure here, maybe not gelling with the Caterham Academy car.
Well, you say the sound of the Caterham isn't that impressive. It is a 1.6 litre 4-cylinder engine, and that is a huge gap for Shimon Frelick, about 0.6 of a second on the timing line. Jan Dragoon just not hooking it up in that first lap. Almost a half a second behind, I think, in the second sector. I can't tell you much for now. But we do move into the second lap, and I think if we could see where Frelick is relative to Jan Dragoon, it would give us a bit of an idea. It doesn't seem like it's the fastest of second halves of the lap, so this could be quite detrimental for Frelick here, as Jan Dragoon moves into the tunnel and only has a few more corners in his way if he wants any chance of catching up to Frelick here, and he is sliding, absolutely sliding. But it is Dragoon who is significantly further ahead across the line, almost 0.6 of a second. Still, it shows, race view's not updating. Yeah, it was 7.8 seconds in the way of Simon Frelick. So a good, I want to say, redemption for Frelick here, and has the chance now to move on to the quarterfinals.
Indeed. So we have our first tiebreaker race of the day. This is good stuff, with Shimon Frelick once again on the left-hand side of the grid, and Jan Dragoon once again on the right. And this works exactly the same as the other races, but it is winner takes all. So whoever wins this now goes through to the round of the quarterfinals. My apologies, but yes,
round of 8.
round of 8. Well, there you go. The problem there, you see, I was not expecting Shimon Frelick to have the advantage after the first lap. It didn't look particularly clean, but it may well be that that's just because that's how hard he was pushing it. So Shimon Frelick somehow managed to not just take the lead after the end of the first lap, but extend that margin over the second lap. I will just remind you quickly, if you want to keep track of the live timing in this event, there is live timing on raceview.com. That's race-view. I think it's the hyphen. What's the... It is race-view. Is it dash or hyphen? The one that's like
Uh,
I'm computer literate, but I don't know the names for things. But anyway, race
hyphen is the middle one.
race-view.com, and then the server you're looking for is GPWC Sim Racing #2, and it also tells you the times relative to the other drivers who have been out and competed. So I can tell you that the fastest time so far is that of Michael Falkenhayn with his 159,000 laps of practice. Jan Dragoon is the driver we're watching now, heading into the tunnel. The lights illuminating the nice shiny Caterham Academy car as he flings it out to the outside. We have seen drivers hitting that wall before, but Dragoon keeps it out, keeps it on the road, keeps it very tight to the inside. I do think that's the better line through that particular corner there. And then towards the end of the first lap, once he does 2 more hairpins, we'll get a sector split, an accurate sector split, which will tell us who is leading at the end of the first lap. And there you have that double apex right-hander, and it's just about going to be Frelick, but it's very close. There's less than a tenth in it, I think. Yep, just about a tenth of a second now between Frelick and Dragoon. They were both in the 1 minute zeros on that first lap, which is about where you're supposed to be. Dragoon significantly improved from that last race, showing me that the last race he potentially made a mistake in, and this is going to be a very close one. Who is going to go through to the quarterfinals? Place your bets, because this could still go either way. We're on board with Shimon Frelick. A little bite of opposite lock. He flings it out to the outside, to the inside now. Slight correction. Big slide, big spin. He's in the wall. Shimon Frelick will surely be knocked out of the Race of Champions in just the round of 16. What drama here for last year's runner-up. Shimon Frelick is out because Jan Dragoon just has 1 more corner to go. I think he's on the last lap anyway, across the line. And that is utterly devastating for Shimon Frelick, who would have contended for the win today. I was speaking to Menno Klont before this event. He was saying Shimon Frelick's going to reach the final. He's not even in the quarterfinals. Oh my goodness, Alex, did you see that coming?
Not at all, but I think that's the risk Frelick knew he was taking with that driving style, and for the first time, the higher, technically, like the higher ranked driver, higher seeded driver, is able to win out the lower seeded driver, although, like we say, seeds mean nothing. Driving performance does, as Jan Dragoon secures his spot into the quarterfinals. And now, between Stevens and Patterson, his second opponent of the day will be decided. And I think this one could be quite interesting. Battle of the English people with Tom Stevens and Craig Patterson. I think should be relatively close. Patterson's a very experienced driver, but Tom Stevens, of course, runner-up in the Super League Championship. So this could be pretty fun.
Craig Patterson, whose name we've all learned to spell, I very much hope. But yes, so Tom Stevens, of course, our runner-up in the Super League Championship this year, took 3 Grand Prix victories in Spain, in Belgium, and in Cota. Only missed 1 race in that particular championship, but that wouldn't have made a difference to his championship position. We know that for sure. But yes, Tom Stevens, one of the favourites in every event that he competes in, and I very much hope that he will be back in Super League next year. Craig Patterson as well, one of the most consistent drivers, doesn't always win. He only took 2 victories this year in Formula Sprint 2, but that was enough to give him 3rd position in that championship due to his consistency and his run of top 10 finishes. And as I was saying in yesterday's stream, one of my former teammates as well, way back in the days of WCS League, McGann competition. Of course, Craig Patterson yesterday defeated, I'm getting up the stream, defeated Lorenzo Atericic-Funcic, and also crashed into him at one point, but we don't talk about that. And Tom Stevens defeated Matt Gale, Tom Stevens being the 2nd seeded driver, and he will go away on driver's left in this first of 3 competitions here against Craig Patterson. So away we go then. Craig Patterson is the driver we're watching in the darker blue Caterham. Look at him soaring at the wheel there, heading into the left-hander. and through the right. He has his work cut out here to defeat Tom Stevens, who is one of the best drivers that GPVWC has ever seen. And, well, can he do it, Alex? We've seen some surprises already. I think he touched the wall, though. This might go Stevens' way.
Well, there's still plenty of time for both drivers to make mistakes. It's 4 seconds crossing the first timing line, the first time around. So you do get sector 2 splits when we get through halfway. Huh? What am I saying? When you get halfway through the lap and cross the timing line, you do get a split. But it does show that one side of the track is significant. Oh no, Patterson's round!
Okay, well that will confirm it for Stevens then. All he has to do is finish this race. Now, Patterson would be good to finish it as well, because of course, if Stevens was to make the same mistake, then he would still have a chance, but I think that is entirely unlikely. So Tom Stevens just has to finish. I tell you what, Craig Patterson's only just got going. It's a good job he got going now, because otherwise, I think he'd be in danger of being lapped, as he lapped Tericic Vuncic in yesterday's competition. But here we are on board with Tom Stevens now, showing us how it should be done. And he will go one up at the end of this race, and that is pretty much a given there. But Patterson, if he can keep his head on straight and do it all over again, but better, we still have another race to go. So his competition is not over yet, and he's just got to make sure that he improves for the second time of asking.
Yeah, just watching how Patterson was trying to get around there, it just doesn't seem as if these cars have that much torque at all to try and use the throttle to turn around. I mean, you have to properly sling it into the corner. I think that's where Patterson is struggling here, not being able to use his accelerator pedal to drive the car. Well, I say that.
Oh, he's done it again!
Repeats the same mistake across the line.
Twice in 2 laps, and the gap in the end was 20 seconds. So a pretty painful one, I'm afraid to say. But like I said, he's got another opportunity. We've seen a couple of incidents so far, actually. So I wonder if these cars are harder to control than the Mazdas that were out there yesterday. Remco says yes, so I presume that you've driven these cars yourself, Remco. But yeah, Caterhams. He says they're by far the hardest of all cars. Yeah, I'm not surprised by that. I always find that cars like Caterhams have quite wafty suspension, I would say. You change gear and the car just decides to waft across the track, and you just find yourself somewhere where you're not expecting to be. But then again, I think Mazdas have that to a certain extent as well. But this time, Craig Patterson will go from the left, Tom Stevens will go from the right, and if Tom Stevens is to win this one, then he too will go through to the quarterfinals, and he will face Jan Dragoon when he makes it there. Here we go again then. Can he do it? The answer is probably yes, but we'll have to see if Craig Patterson has anything more to say if he can keep the car pointed in the right direction, Alex.
Yeah, it's still a chance for Patterson here, although I think the mental game will be affecting him more than anything. Tom Stevens has everything to lose at this point, and it seems for now as if he is cool-headed. I mean, it just seems like Stevens has much more control in the slidiness of the Caterham car compared to Patterson, demonstrated nicely in the fact that he has been able to complete the final corner. And I think it's just amazing how much control he has in that final corner slide. I mean, you watch it and he was almost millimeters away from the inside wall. And yeah, Stevens, a 3.7 second gap across the timing line, which does mean that he is probably in an advantageous position here, based on Patterson as they cross the line for the second lap. It's almost a second. In fact, it is more than a second between Tom Stevens and Patterson over the first lap, and I think that's a huge gap for Craig Patterson to try and make up. And that's just demonstrating my point, where Tom Stevens just seems so much more in control of the car. I think Patterson just can't get it to work with his driving style, can't get the rear end to slide as nicely as Stevens is. And yeah, I just don't think it's working for Patterson here.
Yeah, this is not Patterson's car by any means, and that means that all Stevens has to do once again is just get to the finish line, and he will undoubtedly go through to the quarterfinal, the round of 8. And for Craig Patterson, he's given it a good go. He, of course, won his races yesterday, but unfortunately has had a good few accidents to add to that as well. And there is Tom Stevens crossing the line to confirm himself in the quarterfinals. And well done to Craig, actually, for improving from race 1. He didn't have an accident this time around, but unfortunately still ended up quite a long way behind. 2.7 seconds was the advantage at the end in favour of Tom Stevens. So that confirms, of course, that Stevens will face Jan Dragoon in the final. And now we wait to see our next matchup, which
final?
will... Sorry?
You said the final.
The quarterfinals. But yes, our next matchup will be Alex Lahoe versus Oliver Taras. And look out for this one, because Lahoe was 3rd last year, Alex. Do you have faith in your fellow Alex? What can he do this year?
I mean, I've always referred to him as the worst Alex, purely because he's French.
Oh no.
We're not getting into this argument, but it goes away a long while back. But yeah, I have complete faith that Lahoe has got it in the bag here. Unless Taras has got some amazing just hat pull of a drive against Lahoe here. I think Lahoe is just the stronger driver, not based on seed or anything. I just think Lahoe's improved himself so much this year, and Taras has just been a little bit inconsistent at times, especially in the first half of the season in FS2, where he just couldn't hook up a race 2 at all, and it was just genuinely quite a struggle for Taras, it would seem.
So Alex Lahoe yesterday defeated Brody Lawless 2-0, and he is the 5th seeded driver, having won the Super Lights Championship. Definitely look out for Alex Lahoe. We know he's competitive in the race of champions. As for his opponent, Oliver Taras, he defeated Owen Phil Haugsvik in a 2-1 win. He is the 12th seeded driver, although it wasn't entirely straightforward for Oliver yesterday, because he did have that big mistake in the second race, which forced it to go down to a tiebreaker. And that, of course, means that if he's to go through in this one, he will need to be slightly more consistent, slightly more hooked up. And that will be the only way he'll have a chance of beating the Frenchman Alex Lahoe. So, whoever wins this one, of course, will have to go up against one of our underdog success stories, Knox or Stefano, in the quarterfinals. We are yet to find out who, but of course that will be the race after this. We'll cross that when we get to it. And we're just waiting once again to see our drivers heading out onto the circuit. This is a good opportunity for me to check the YouTube chat once again. Craig Patterson says, that was fun, I think. Haha. Yes, not quite sure about that, but I'm glad you had fun anyway. It was always going to be a tough ask to beat Tom Stevens, no matter whether you kept it facing the right way or not. Kaikera says, can we take a moment to appreciate the suspension of the Caterham? Well, I tell you what, I don't think the suspension of the Caterham appreciates us, but there you go.
Oh, nice
Kaikera says, he says, Tom drove so fast we need to wait for the next race. Yes, but here we go. We're just getting into place. And this time it will be Alex Lahoe on the left in the purple car, Oliver Taras on the right in the grey car. And we'll see who will go 1-0 up after this one. Although the lights are quite slow to go on. Here we go. And when they illuminate, we will once again be underway, Alex.
Yeah, and it seems to be the better start for Oliver Taras this time around, but it was relatively evenly matched. And oh wow, that is an aggressive approach that we haven't really seen so far for Alex Lahoe. He is using the back end of that vehicle, and that Caterham just seems to be obeying him quite nicely, and it seems to be the most aggressive of the driving styles we've seen so far. It's actually quite smooth and quite nice to watch. Either way, we've got an onboard, and yeah, you can just see one relatively clean movement to get the car around the corner, and I wonder how that compares to Taras's style here. But most people have been absolutely soaring at that wheel to try and get it around the corners.
through the left-hander, keeping it tight, going into the tunnel. That's a corner where you don't necessarily have to keep it tight, and some people don't. And then this turn here, we've seen plenty of different lines. But Alex Laho takes the advantage early on. He leads the race. And I'm just waiting for my timing to update, but it's about 7/10 of a second. So that's a big lead for Alex Laho. And I tell you what, he was nearly under a minute on that first lap there. And as far as first laps go, that is very quick indeed. And I think the fastest we've seen so far. So we'll have to wait for his second lap to be set, but I wouldn't be surprised if he goes to the top of the timing screen with this one. Michael Falkenhayn still at the top as we talk, followed by Koroshavin and Stevens. But yes, Taras will be slightly unnerved by what Alex is being able to pull off so far. We're on board with the Caterham driver, passing those massive sausage curbs that he got so thoroughly acquainted with yesterday. And through the chicanes, through the hairpins he goes. The left-hander, followed by a right-hander, and then half a lap to go after this one before we will see who wins. And actually, never mind, that was the end. My apologies, I've lost track of where we are. But that was a big win for Alex Laho, 1.5 seconds, and that was the fastest lap we've seen so far by 0.3 of a second. So Alex Laho has proven himself to be, at least as far as the Caterhams are concerned, absolutely indomitable. And I wouldn't be surprised at all whether he absolutely blitzes this one and gets through to the quarterfinals with the utmost of ease, Alex.
Yeah, I mean, wow. He looked in the small snippet of warm-up that we got where the drivers did actually get to go out. Who just looks absolutely rapid. I mean, I was just watching it and it was rather impressive actually to see just how quick Lahu was in that practice, that minutes of practice or so that they got, where he did set some very impressive times without even considering like the size of the circuit, because either way, it was looking quite good for Lahu.
Okay, so this time Taras will go on the left and Lahu will go on the right. Lahu will know that he has the pace here and that all he's got to do is avoid mistakes. I wonder how much practice Alex has put in for this one, because of course we know Falkenhayn was doing a heck of a lot of practice, literally hundreds of laps of practice before this event. And for Lahu to be 0.3 quicker, you have to assume that this is not his first time in the car, because if it was to be, then you would have to assume he's some kind of superhuman. Here come the lights, and when they go out, we will be underway yet again, and off we go. A slightly better start from Taras, actually. Crosses the line about a tenth faster than Lahu. About 600 faster than Lahu. And that is not going to matter much in the grand scheme of things. Here's Taras, keeping it a little bit, well, I was going to say a little bit tighter than he was last time we saw him, but he ran a little wide through that right-hand hairpin. Kept it nice and tight through the left-hander. Here's one of the double apexed right-handers. Kicks it out to the barriers, doesn't hit it though. That's where Craig Patterson came afoul in his first heat. And then through the banking, once again under the rock wall and into the more heavily banked hairpin. And Alex, if the other Alex, if Alex Lahu is this good in a Caterham, you have to ask, is he going to be quite as good in any of the other cars? Because of course we have a different car for every round in this tournament, and he has an advantage of a second yet again, 1 second over Oliver Taras. But is that just the Caterham? Is it just this car that he's seriously competitive in?
I think it's unfair to say that Lahu is particularly using the car to his advantage, but I think it is genuinely suiting Lahu's driving style in terms of just being nice and smooth. One relatively nice input into the corner, and you can see just how much of an advantage Alex Lahu has, because like we say, we've been using that carousel as a benchmark, and you expect the other driver to be there when you come around the half of the lap watching from this driver's perspective, but Taras was only just going up onto the bridge, so it seems as if Lahu has got a massive advantage as well, and it looks like he's going to set another fastest time here.
Alex Laho wins seemingly easily by 2 seconds there, has a big slide, but that's just celebration, and he will go through to the quarterfinals and crashes once again. He did that yesterday, didn't he? Celebrated by crashing across the line. But yes, his lap time, oh my goodness. Okay, so it wasn't quite... Oh, it was a new fastest, goodness me. So Alex Laho once again improves, and his first lap was the first lap to be under a minute, if that makes sense. And I tell you what, Taras, he wasn't slow. His first lap was also in the 1 minute zeros, but he was made to look slow just because of how damn fast Alex Laho was there. So congratulations to Oliver for making it this far, but unfortunately he will go no further simply because he had the immense misfortune of being drawn alongside Alex Laho. But anyway, we have our first change of schedule to announce to you. You can see on the leaderboard that James Knox is racing in this next competition, and you may be wondering why that is, since he was defeated yesterday by Matthias Maika. Maika has unfortunately had to pull out of the tournament after defeating Knox 2-0, and that of course means that Knox has effectively been given a bye to this round, so he has a chance of redemption now. But he will have to go up against Wesley Stefano, the lowest seeded driver who made it through to our second round of competition. But do not let that fool you whatsoever. Stefano absolutely deserves his place in this competition because he knocked out a Super League race winner to be here. He knocked out Carlos Martin, the 4th seeded driver yesterday, having had to qualify for his place. So definitely do not underestimate Wesley Stefano. And I would personally put my money, although I'm not gambling on this, but if I was, I would put my money on Wesley Stefano for this next competition, Alex.
We should gamble on it. I think that'd be pretty fun.
The Las Vegas Grand Prix has been and gone. This is more like Milton Keynes, I think. But anyway,
The Grand
James...
Prix in Milton Keynes. I think Red Bull would enjoy that.
I mean, we've done that. We've done GPVWC karting in Milton Keynes a couple of times now. The same circuit, actually. Nice little indoor kart track over there near Leighton Buzzard, I think. And yeah, I mean, a couple of people in this tournament were very good around that track, but I don't think Knox or Stefano were there. I definitely haven't met Wesley Stefano in person. I don't know about James Knox. But yeah, we're just waiting to see them go up against each other now. I know we are slightly ahead of schedule, but that's always good. These races are quite quick fire, and we just leave a little bit of time to spare just in case we end up with tiebreakers or anything along those lines. But once the drivers are ready, we can get going basically straight away. And we'll see if Knox can redeem himself for his loss yesterday, or if Wesley Stefano can take the advantage and carry on his momentum that he built up by winning against Carlos Martin yesterday. Just to remind you, because I know that Wesley hasn't raced in GPWC, at least not for a long time, and at least not in any of the races that I've seen. Wesley is an experienced sim racer. He's another driver from the WCS League McGann Series crowd, and that would have been well over 5 years ago. That would have been 2017, 18, 19 that I raced against him there. James Knox, on the other hand, has been racing in, I think, the Academy Series this year. FS2, and also I think the Academy Series from time to time. But yes, has been racing in FS2. Now they will go up against each other, with Stefano starting on driver's left, and we have Knox on driver's right in the more green coloured car, although annoyingly Stefano's car also has green on it. And away they go, Knox with a slightly better start, but now we watch Stefano to see how smoothly he drives through this middle section of the right-hand track, and whether he can defeat James Knox, as I predicted that he might, Alex.
Yeah, I think this one should be pretty interesting. Two relatively unproven drivers, I would say, in GPVWC. I mean, James Knox yesterday, of course, replacing Matthias Maika, who beat him out in the round of 32. So I think it's a chance for redemption for Knox, but it's going to be tough. I mean, both of these drivers, relatively, I don't want to say unknown, but like I said earlier, unproven. And I think there's plenty of opportunities for them to battle it out here. And I'm just waiting to see what happens in this first lap before I start making any judgments of who might be the fastest. But it seems that you are right, and Stefano does seem to have the advantage, almost 7 tenths of a second. John Knox hits the wall, and a lock-up as well. That can't be too great, but it might have helped him, really, going wide in and keep wide in, tight in,
Tight out.
whatever. Yeah, that's the one.
Oh, he's taking a couple of knocks out there, isn't he, Knox, as he hits the wall again. And I think that means that Stefano will go through, but he's still got half a lap to go. My apologies. And we're on board with James Knox now. This Caterham clearly a bit of a handful. Whoa! Oh, and he's flipped it! James Knox flips over and over, 3 times over, ends up on his lid. I was not expecting to see that today, but those sausage curbs are vicious stuff. And shades of Pascal Wehrlein back in 2017. Wesley Stefano crosses the line and wins very easily, but Knox will somehow make it to the line. Spins it around. Come on, you can do it. He's going to get lapped here in a second. Bounces off the barriers and rejoins the road now. He will make it across the line. And what a spectacular run that was. Come on, and reverses it. He reverses it across the line. And even though that wasn't brilliant, it was at least spectacular. And you know what they say, if you can't give your sponsors airtime by winning races, do it by crashing.
Did he not do that yesterday as well?
I don't think he crashed. I think
Who did the jump yesterday?
that was Taras.
Okay.
Although I think yesterday will be
sausage
better
curd is
remembered.
cursed.
Indeed. Well, it was the other side actually, because Taras hit it on driver's left. No, it was driver's right, wasn't it? Because he was wide around the left-hander and then hit it on driver's right. So it was the same sausage curb, which has now launched both Taras and Knox. But goodness me, James Knox got the worst of it there.
I want to make a bad pun, but I don't think it's
Already
worth
done it.
Yeah.
I mean, today I've said
made
he's
it
taking
yesterday
Knox.
and
Yesterday
today.
I said School of Hard Knocks, you know,
The pun doesn't become any funnier the second time you say it, but
or the 4th time.
you know. You had a third?
Well, I just repeated them twice, didn't I? So I guess that's 4th, but yeah. Goodness me. Kaikera says Wesley redemption to arc. He returns and wins it all. Oh, well, I tell you what, he's looking pretty damn good so far. And yeah. So someone putting LOL in the YouTube chat as well. I think that's a little unfair, but hopefully James can see that in good spirits. He's starting on the left-hand side here with Wesley Stefano on the right. Can he redeem himself in this second race? Or are we going to see some more aerobatics? Goodness me. Let's keep our eye on James Knox for the time being and see what ends up happening here. Go, 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 Alex.
Yeah, we're away, and it seems like it's the better start for Stefano. The advantage of 0.08 of a second right off the bat. Knox is able to stray away from that sausage curb this time around and is sliding through the hairpins on the right side of the circuit. And we're about to cross the timing line for the first time. And then we'll have one more half of the circuit, and then we'll have a decent representation of the true gap between these two drivers. Knox has got himself to prove everything that happened in the last race. He sort of has to forget now and not repeat the same mistakes and try and edge out Wesley Stefano here and able to get ahead, but it is pretty slidey and pretty difficult for Knox to keep it pointing in the right direction. But as we move to cross the line for the first time, Stefano does seem to be the one with the advantage. Knox, a slight hit of the wall on the outside, on the exit, onto the straight, and Stefano with the advantage of nearly half a second, 4.3 tenths across the line, and Stefano just seems nicely in control through those sweeping right-left-handers into the chicane, into the tunnel, and it seems just Stefano is in complete and just beautiful levels of control when it comes to this car. Knox like I say, that benchmark, the carousel, he's just not there. Stefano with the clear advantage now. And will he repeat the mistakes of Knox? No, only slightly touching the grass this time around. And I think Stefano just in complete control of his car here, just slightly putting that wheel onto the grass through the final corner. And here we go. To finish. It's a just massive margin for Stefano, who does move through to the quarterfinal to go against Alex Lahu. And only 2 more round of 16 matches to go.
I think Knox made another mistake on that last lap because he lost 2 seconds, but luckily nowhere near as bad as the mistake he made in that first race. And that means that James Knox unfortunately extends his losing streak, but well done for soldiering on anyway. And Wesley Stefano will go through to the round of 16. The quarterfinal. This is the round of 16. I'm so used to saying that from yesterday. But Wesley Stefano, our lowest seeded driver still in the competition, carries on nonetheless, and he will face Alex Laho in the quarterfinals. We have another change of schedule. You can see that Lucas Thielen is on the entry list. He was also knocked out in yesterday's competition by Dominic Koroshavin, but it was very close. It was 2-1 between the two of those. He is still in the competition because unfortunately, who was it who pulled out? Kasper Kuritz pulled out of the competition. So unfortunately, we are not going to be seeing any more of Kasper Kuritz, who pulled off another one of those giant killing performances, defeating Frank Hamming. Frank was asked whether he would like to return to the competition, but he wasn't sure if it would work in terms of timing. So instead, Lucas Thielen was invited back due to his performances yesterday. And I actually think he stands a little bit more of a chance than some of our other drivers who have been given automatic buys in this competition. Although I do still think that Alessandro will be the favourite. Alessandro, of course, was also given a buy yesterday. He was supposed to be up against Silver Joffert, although Joffert ended up pulling out of the competition last minute, meaning we didn't actually see Maggio driving at all yesterday. And he's the last driver to be introduced to this competition. And as a result, I guess I should probably go over some of Maggio's statistics and results then. Maggio is most well known from his performances in Super Lights this year. He won the race in Singapore, although missed 2 races in that championship, which cost him an opportunity to challenge for the higher positions in the championship. Ended up in 9th position. He also did a couple of outings in Super League with a best result of 9th position at the Chinese Grand Prix. He actually made 3 outings in Super League this year, and he was also just in the Super League Young Drivers test a couple of days ago, where he was the fastest of everyone. So look out for Alessandro Maggio, who I believe was also fastest of everyone in the Super League Young Drivers test last year, unless I'm very much mistaken, or a couple of years ago anyway, because I'm sure I remember him doing that, and also being very, very quick on that occasion. So Alessandro Maggio, another one of the really tough nuts to crack, versus Lucas Thielen, but 2 drivers who have been given an automatic buy in this competition, and who will now have to compete against each other to prove that they deserve to carry on to the next round.
Well, Battle of the Buys should be quite interesting to see. I don't know who my money's on, to be completely honest with you. Of course, we got FS1 versus Super Lights, and just looking at the Drivers' Championship, both seem, similarly matched. Thielen 7th in FS1, with Maggio being 9th in Super Light. So I think this is probably the most even match we've had so far, and it is represented nicely by the seedings as well. 11 for Thielen, 8 for Maggio. Maggio on the right, Thielen on the left, into these first set of corners. And I think the most interesting part in this first race is just looking at the driving style of these drivers, and it seems like Maggio is absolutely hacking away at that steering wheel, trying to get the car into a nice position, trying to get it turned which is different to what we've seen so far. Maggio is trying to drive the car, keep it pinned down, whereas everyone else seems to be trying to get that rear end out, trying to drift it around the corners somewhat. Maggio just seems a bit more in control this time around. And the gap to Lucas Foulkes is 3.6 seconds, roughly where you'd expect it to be for an evenly matched. Oh, that was a good save by Maggio there to try and hold that straight and along the circuit. He does continue. I just think that will have woken him up a little bit. And wide in, tight out. And he does have the advantage over Foulkes, a huge advantage, you might want to say. 0.9 seconds almost was the gap across the line. I think Foulkes must have made a mistake because he was, I don't want to say advantageous on the first run, but it seemed like he was, at a decent match to Maggio, but I think a mistake was made. I'll actually check that. Never mind, you can't look on race view, because why would you?
Okay. Last half a lap between the two of them now. Maggio still with the advantage. It is a little bit of a shame we've had so many people pull out of the competition over the last couple of days, but I guess that's what happens sometimes when people have other scheduling commitments. It's a little bit like an NSYNC concert out here. Bye. But anyway, Lucas Foulkes up against the wall through the tunnel. Has he pulled anything back against Alessandro Maggio? No, he has not. Maggio takes a 1-0 lead over Lucas Foulkes, and it's 1.5 seconds as well. So a very good lap time there from Alessandro Maggio. And that is going to be tough to overcome for this second race here, as Lucas Foulkes drifts his way around in preparation for the second race and now disappears into the ground, because again, that's how disconnections work. But of course, has not disconnected from the server or whatever. It's just that the session is ticking over in preparation for our second race. So this time, of course, Maggio will start on the left and Lucas Foulkes will start on the right. I'm just going to check Maggio's time on the leaderboard, actually, because yes, that was the third fastest time we've seen for the Caterham so far, only behind Lahoo and Falkenhayn. So that's promising stuff there from Alessandro Maggio. And once again, Lucas Foulkes, not exactly slow, but at the same time, nowhere near the likes of our leaders, such as Alessandro Maggio. Here we go then, there's Lucas Foulkes. We're just waiting for Alessandro Maggio, and when the lights go out, we will once again be underway for some more Race of Champions competition, Alex.
Yes. And hopefully the lights will come on soon, and then they'll go out and we'll get racing once again. Or will they?
Okay.
There they are. There's the lights. I've been missing you. But out they go. Foulkes has a slightly better reaction time, but not as good as a launch compared to Maggio. Into that first corner, it seems like they've got similar driving styles when we compare Maggio and Foulkes. Foulkes just absolutely hacking it, and a bit of a drift into that second proper corner. Foulkes properly throwing it into the corners, trying to get that extra rotation, trying to get it to the apex, right out wide to the edge of that tunnel, and seems nicely in control into the final corner. I couldn't tell if there was a bit of contact there, but where's Maggio? I didn't even see him at all.
Well, that's because we haven't completed a lap yet, but we'll see soon. There's Foulkes around the tighter hairpins of the lap. He was nice and clean through those curbs there, right up on the curb on the left, but does the most important thing, like a meat lover on a diet, avoids the sausages. They're very close, look at that! And Maggio is just ahead by 1/10 of a second at the end of the first lap. And it was a good first lap for both of them, actually, in the mid 1 minute zeros. Maggio, I think, slightly slower than his first race. Foulkes slightly faster than his first race. This could still go either way, but it might take a mistake from Maggio because of the pace we saw him pull out at the end of that second race. Here he is, just half a lap to go at the end of this one. Across the line, over the bridge now, into the left-hander. Sometimes we see sparks flying into that corner, but clearly he avoided the worst of the banking and kept the car in a straight line. Now into the right-hander. Ooh, kicking the tail out slightly. that can sometimes cost you a tenth or two, which in this race could make all the difference. It's going to be a close one as he comes out of the final corner. Where is Lucas Stylen? It's very close. Oh, and it's Maggio by less than a tenth of a second, by just 86 thousandths of a second. And Alessandro Maggio is confirmed through now to our quarterfinal. A very valiant performance from Lucas Stylen. Despite having been knocked out technically yesterday, he returns to the competition and proves that that his results definitely weren't all that they said they were. And as a result of that, Alessandro Maggio will face whoever wins our next race in the quarterfinals. But guys, the next race is a doozy. This is one that I have absolutely been hyped for all day long. It is Jan Grankvist versus Owen McGorgy, the battle of the Super League race winners. Jan Grankvist, of course, won the Super League Championship this year with, I think, 5 wins to his name, if I remember correctly. Oh, I was exactly right. Jolly good. He won in Saudi, Japan, China, Great Britain, and Germany, and then ended up winning the championship by 42 points in the end. And Owen McGorgy had 2 race victories to his name in Australia and Azerbaijan, but did miss 7 races. So we have no idea what he would have been capable of had he turned up between China and Germany. And as a result of that, I really think that this is quite an even matchup here. The prevailing sentiment going into this one is that Grankvist is still the favourite, being our top-seeded driver. Like I said earlier, I was speaking to Menno Klont, and he said that Grankvist would be in the final. However, Menno also said that Szymon Frelick would be in the final, and he's already been knocked out by Jan Dragoon. So who knows which way this could go? I honestly think whoever wins this race here is very likely indeed to make it all the way, Alex.
Yeah, I think the winner of the final, it's not the final, not even close to it. Still 7 more races to go before we get there. But I think Jan Grankvist, like you say, is the favourite and does have the stats to back it up. But I think Magagi also just has that little bit of competitivism, that's a word, probably, to try and beat Grankvist here. So I think, like you say, this could very much define who moves on to the semi-finals and even the finals. So yeah, I totally agree with you there. And I think Maggio has pretty much everything to lose at this point, because he is either fighting a very strong driver or a very strong driver.
Indeed. Kaikera in the YouTube chat says that was close, and Alex Maggio says that was closer than I would have liked. Yes, indeed it was. Less than a tenth in it in that second race. Lucas Stylen put up a very valiant effort. But then again, he did still win it 2-0, and therefore proves that he is a competitive driver and one to be watched in the rest of this tournament. We're just waiting now for Grankvist versus McGorgy, one of the most hotly contested races that we are likely to see today. And this could very easily have been a finals matchup had the seeding gone a slightly different way. But yes, this is absolutely one that I think will determine at least one of our finalists at the end. Jan Grankvist, I say at least one, it can't confirm both of them because someone has to be knocked out now. And it will either be Jan Grankvist or Owen McGorgy. Jan Grankvist, up until this season, had not won a Super League race. He'd got very, very close in previous years. He'd been working his way up. He's improving all the time, but finally broke through, and once he'd broken his duck, was just unstoppable. As for Owen McGorgy, he was focusing mainly on FSR this year, which is why he didn't make a lot of the Super League Championship. But I'm sure that if he puts his mind to a full campaign of Super League in the future, then he stands a very good chance of being a championship contender in that as well. Do not be fooled by the fact that McGorgy is the 17th seeded driver. He is absolutely a top 5, maybe even top 3 seed contender in this championship, and it's going to be so close between himself and Grankvist. The lights go out now. Who will come out on top in this battle of the Titans? McGorgy crosses the line about 900ths ahead of Jan Granqvist, so an ever so slightly better start for Owen McGorgy. And now we're watching him in that aquamarine GPVWC coloured car, as you put it so nicely earlier, Alex, through the middle section of the track. Here we are on board now with our two-time Super League winner, who won TOP Esports' very first race, way back at the very first race of this season. And we'll see just what he's capable of this time around.
Yeah, I think McGorgy got the better start there, but there's still plenty of time in it. 3
Yes, Alex, I think you might be having internet issues there. Sorry, you cut out slightly. I very much hope I'm not talking over you right now. But here we go at the end of the first lap, and it's McGorgy who has the advantage by 0.4 of a second. That's a much bigger advantage than I was expecting to see in this race. 0.460 to the better of Owen McGorgy. And now we watch our Super League champion, Jan Granqvist, who surprisingly has it all to do. I was expecting it to be significantly closer between the two of them, and I'm not sure anyone quite expected Owen McGorgy to have a lead like that at the end of the first lap. Half a lap to go in this first race between the Titans now. Through the banking, through the left-hander. Look at the line, it's a slightly different line than McGorgy took. A little correction partway through the corner as the car stopped oversteering and began understeering. That's not always the best line to take. He's got one more corner now. Has he been able to bring anything back against McGorgy? No, Owen McGorgy takes a 1-0 lead by a second. McGorgy pulls a second out over Granqvist. That is not easy to do by any metric. And Owen McGorgy, as expected, is a real contender today, Alex.
Yeah, McGorgy just had a great run in that first section. And on that first lap, the gap... Well, I say the first lap, the first half lap, the gap looked relatively normal between McGorgy and Granqvist. So I think something happened to Granqvist in the second half of that second lap there for him to lose as much time as he did to McGorgy. But nonetheless... a very, very strong performance in that first race to gain that second gap almost immediately. And that's put Granqvist, I don't want to say top contender, but our most expected contender already on the back foot after just one heat.
Yep, the top-seeded driver on the back foot. Also, I don't know how Owen McGorgy's done this, but he seems to have glitched out our hot laps already, our live timing. Now, what you're seeing here, whoa, my goodness. What you're seeing here does not matter in terms of the competition. Yes, Owen McGorgy has just turtled it, but that does not matter because this is only a warm-up session. We're waiting for the session to change officially. But yes, here we go. But yeah, McGorgy has somehow managed to glitch out the timing screen, which is saying that he managed to set a fastest lap of 6 seconds. Now, that is not possible by any metric. I think his fastest lap was in the 56-second range. So I think the timing screen forgot to count and then just kind of guessed. It was like, well, you were quick, so 6 seconds, that'll do. But anyway, McGorgy apparently leading our leaderboard, but I don't think he was actually up there. I think he was about the 7th fastest, actually. And now, here come the lights. McGorgy is on the left, Granqvist is on the right. Can McGorgy overcome our Super League champion, or does Jan Granqvist have anything left in the tank? Away they go. Alex, talk us through the start.
Yeah, Granqvist sliding through that first carousel section into two long left-handers. It's quite a tricky start to start on this side, I would say. But you just have a very technical section, and it should put you in a decent rhythm for the rest of the lap. Plenty of hairpins into the tunnel section now. Granqvist will be the second driver to cross the line first time around. There's McGorgy through the carousel up ahead, and Granqvist just not pushing as much as I've seen other drivers into the bit under the bridge. A bit of touching of grass, and that's probably not ideal, but using that curb to get it hooked nicely around this hairpin section on the right hand side of the circuit, very close to the inside, touching the grass sometimes. And now Granqvist tries for the better exit, but McGorgy with a massive lead once more. Magagi 0.5 to Jan Grunqvist. So Magagi just has the better run, I think, has the better, like, more practice, more ideal lines, and just look at how in control he seems, sliding it nicely through the hairpins. And I think that's his main advantage, is just how he's able to keep that momentum up, get close to those walls and into the carousel section on the left-hand side, just keeping that speed up. And it just seems so flowy from Magagi here. And I think he's got it in the bag looking at this gap here. I mean, 4.5 seconds, that's more than 8/10 what we saw last time around, the distance between Grunqvist and Magagi. Only one more corner to go now between him and the quarterfinals. You see Grunqvist outside the screen. He does it.
Our top-seeded driver is knocked out in just the round of 16. What a dramatic matchup between Owen Magorgi and Jan Grunqvist. And Menno Klont's final prediction is completely wrong, because both of the drivers, I'm so sorry, Menno, I shouldn't rub it in, but both of the drivers he said would be in the final are out in the round of 16. But yes, what a drive from Owen Magorgi there, and the lap time was incredible. In fact, Grunqvist's last lap was quicker. Grunqvist's last lap was a 56 dead. That would have put him third of all. Second of all, because of course Magorgi's lap time is not a genuine one. It still just says 6 seconds somehow, but anyway. Whatever the case, it's not going to matter for Grunqvist. He's been knocked out. So Magorgi will face Maggio in the final. Both of those were in the 56, the very low 56 second bracket as far as lap times are concerned. That one is going to be a clash of the titans as well. And that is our round of 16. So Koreshavin, Falkenhayn, Dragoon, Stevens, Lahu, Stefano, Maggio and Magorgi are the contenders still left in this competition. We're going to go for a quick break now since we have completed the round of 16. We're going to try to catch up on the times a little bit, but don't go anywhere because we will be back in very quick time, in not much time at all. Let me get my English sorted out. We're going to be back very shortly for the quarterfinals. Hello everyone and welcome back to the 2024 Race of Champions. I am still Caitlin Penny, I'm still joined by Alex Foulkes, and the stream is still being provided by Remco de Zeeuw. Alex, that's a silly saying, isn't it? Like, it's like when you get to the end of a show and someone says, I've been Caitlin Penny, and it's like, so you're going to stop all of a sudden? What's that all about?
It depends on how you look at it, like linguistically. Because if you're saying I've been that and then you disappear, then you're no longer that to that person. I don't know. It doesn't matter. It's English. We made it to confuse the French people, and that's about it.
That's why we stole half the language. Fair enough. Anyway,
Yes.
we are now in the quarterfinals, and you can see our 8 quarterfinalists. Goodness me, 8 quarterfinalists on the screen. We have Dominic Kurashavin, Michael Falkenhayn, Jan Dragoon, Tom Stevens, Alex Lahu, Wesley Stefano, Alessandro Maggio, and Owen McGorgy. Thanks to that fantastic upset result there, with Owen McGorgy defeating the number 1 seeded driver. We are now getting ready for our first quarter-final, and as you can see, we are introducing you to a brand new car that we haven't used at any other part of the competition. This is the Ford Capri, so we're going back to the 1970s for this one, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing how differently this car handles. Specifically, it is the Ford Capri RS3100. So for our first quarter-final, we have Owen McGorgy on the left, Alessandro Maggio on the right, and I tell you what, this is going to be a thrilling competition here. These two were two of the absolute fastest in the Caterhams, and now we have to see what they're like in a completely different style of car. Alex, this car is an absolute beast. It has a heck of a lot more power than the Caterham. It's a heck of a lot heavier than the Caterham, but it's also a lot lower, so you really cannot afford to hit those curbs too badly, or worse, to get the sausages.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at that front
it hit
lip,
the wall!
there's barely any clearance. Oh, McGorgy hits
Good
the
save.
wall and has saved it. Not round just yet, but that's going to be a knock to the confidence for McGorgy. We don't know any of the gaps or any of the representations when we cross the line. We're just going to have to wait and see what happens. But like you say, much more power behind these Ford cars. And with this drift, it is showing through the tunnel. Can't go full power. Maggio ahead at the first lap. Only 0.6 of a second between him and Owen McGorgy. So that mistake has cost McGorgy a lot, but Maggio has made his own there, coming in a bit too close to the inside wall and just seems to be struggling to get it around these corners here, really fighting the rear end of this car, trying to sweep it out, trying to stop this understeer, and then through the tunnel it seems like a massive struggle to try and get it around without constantly having to fight it. But a nice little Scandinavian flick there by Maggio to try and enter that hairpin with some speed. And the driver model seems a bit weird when we're looking at it from this angle. That's a different problem because we've got one more corner to go before our first heat in the quarterfinal is decided. And it is Maggio. Oh, McGorgy in the background hits the wall. And,
Well, I've got no idea what happened there. He arrived in completely the wrong angle. I have to assume he got it all wrong coming through the tunnel and then bounced off the wall on the exit. But yeah, managed to hit the wall at a right angle, but facing the wrong way for the finish line. That was crazy there from Owen McGorgy. So it's a 1-0 lead now for Alessandro Maggio, who looks set to potentially knock out the driver who knocked out our top-seeded driver. Goodness me, this is such an unpredictable competition this year. I have to say, one of my biggest gripes about last year's competition was that it was quite predictable. You could tell after the first day who were going to be the contenders, who was going to make it to the final, and all of that. And at the end, it was generally the top-seeded drivers who made it through. This year, for whatever reason, as McGorgy smashes his car into the barriers once again, but that's okay, it's only a warm-up session. But yeah, this year, it's so much more up in the air, and I genuinely cannot even predict the final, let alone the winners. But McGorgy and Maggio have it all to do yet again. Maggio will be on the left this time, McGorgy will be on the right. And we said the Caterhams were hard to control. These cars look like an absolute handful.
Yeah, I think it's just a bit of difficulty trying to control these, and I think Migagi just maybe not as practiced with these as he was in the Caterham. But I think it's that power with just trying to get it through those back wheels, because it is a rear-wheel drive. So essentially, you can drive it like a rally car. I mean, that's what they were made to do. But unfortunately, this isn't a rally circuit, and I mean, unless you plan on going off-road, it's not going to work too well if you are trying to push it too hard. And I think that's exactly what happened to Migagi there, trying to compensate for that mistake.
Yeah, it's a shame we don't have replays, but it would be very hard to do in these quick-fire style races. So this time, Maggio on the left, Migagi on the right. It's worth noting that according to the lap times, these cars are about 4 seconds faster than the Caterhams were, and about 3 seconds or so faster than the Mazdas we saw yesterday. Yeah, about the same pace, maybe a second quicker than the Mazdas that we saw yesterday. So these are the fastest cars that we've seen in the competition so far, and that also adds in this extra difficulty of seeing the corners coming at you faster than you otherwise would. We're watching Alessandro Maggio now, who could potentially knock out Owen Migagi, the Super League race winner. Maggio also a Super League points scorer, having finished 9th in the last race he did in the Super League Championship. Through the left-hander he goes, kicking the tail out. These cars much more tail-happy than the Caterhams, which were kind of understeer factories. And despite being much heavier cars, these ones much more tail-happy. And here we are at the end of the first lap. Who's ahead? And this time it's Migagi, I think. We're about to see the update. And yes, Migagi leads by 0.2 of a second. So Owen Migagi takes the advantage early on, because this time around he did not hit the wall on that first lap like he did in the first heat. Oh, but he touched the wall on the inside there. This is going to be close. But could we see the first tiebreaker of the quarter-finals? Migagi through the tunnel now. He's got half a lap to go after this one. That's where he crashed in the last race, but he makes it to the last half lap. This is the quicker side of the circuit, but of course possibly the more dangerous one, with the massive sausage curbs and the tighter corners, the barriers waiting to get you. Little bit of understeer there, possibly turned in slightly too early to the corner. This is definitely going to be a close one. Round the final corner, who gets it? There's Maggio. Oh, who was it? Oh, I think it's Migagi by 0.5 of a second, less than that. Yes. So Owen Migagi gets it by 0.042. That was a photo finish across the finish line there, and he keeps it alive. We will have a tiebreaker, Alex.
Yeah, I think what happened, if you were watching carefully on that first lap, Maggio into the carousel corner that we're looking at currently, I think he got a bit of a ghost touch maybe on the wall. Maybe it was when he touched the inside sort of curbing area. I wouldn't call it curbing, it's a bit more cobbly. He just got pushed out wide, and I think that tiny little mistake must have cost him there. I mean, that would have compensated for about 0.5 tenth. So I think for Maggio, that was the nail in the coffin. Of course, one more race to decide it all now, and Battle of the Titans, very much fitting. The first, I think, true fight we've had all evening. Starts in the quarterfinals in the very first race of the quarterfinals.
Yeah, fantastic stuff. I'm struggling to remember if we had... Yeah, we did have a couple of... Well, we had one tiebreaker in the round of 16. It was Jan Dragoon versus Shimon Frelich. But this is... I believe that was the closest finish that we've seen in either of the 2 days of competition. I remember that statistic, 0.042 seconds. And that's a jump start. Come on, get it back. You can get away with that, so long as you don't go and stay gone. And now we wait for the lights once again. And once again, it is all or nothing. Whoever wins this race goes through to the semi-finals and has a chance to go on to win this tournament. Maggio slightly faster at the start there, and that might make all the difference if this race is anything like the last one. It's also worth noting Maggio's fastest lap is about half a second faster than Magorgi's, so potentially made a mistake in that last race to cost him a chance of winning it outright. We're on board with Alessandro Maggio now as he goes through the tunnel nice and smooth. I think he is the smoother of the two drivers in this car. Across the line he goes. You saw Magorgi at the top of the hill in the carousel, as you've dubbed it, and over the curbs on the inside. A little bit wide, turns the car in nicely though, and comes towards the first timing line where we will get a chance to see who actually is ahead in this race between Magorgi and Maggio. There's Magorgi, but Maggio leads, and it's a bigger gap than it was in the first race. It is 0.4 of a second, so Maggio leads by 0.4 of a second, Alex.
Yeah, I think the point you
that'll be
made
it.
in the first...
Sorry.
Oh, that's wide for Magorgi, and I don't think that's helping him at all now. And it seems a bit desperate, the driving style for Magorgi, to try and get it through these corners, try and get it through these hairpins. But the point you made in the first race where these cars are bottoming out through these corners. Oh, that's a massive drift for Magorgi, properly throwing it into the corners now, just trying to keep as much speed as possible, but I think that might be costing him into the entries a little bit. I mean, through that long left-hander, he was just bottoming out, and oh, that's not the greatest of entries into the tunnel whatsoever, but on the red line and pushing it right to the line. He's made the same mistake again. Magorgi is out, and it will be Maggio going through to the quarterfinals, the semi-finals even.
He didn't hit the wall on the outside there. I think he gave up. He knew that Maggio was ahead coming out of that last turn, and he knew he didn't stand a chance. Alessandro Maggio has won that race and very much deserves a place in the quarterfinals. But yes, I don't think that Magorgi took it to the line there. I think he knew that he was defeated, and to be honest, I knew he was defeated from earlier in that lap. Due to running wide at those hairpins and getting it all crossed up through there. So Alessandro Maggio has defeated the Super League race winner, Owen Magorgi, and will go through to the semi-finals. He will face either Wesley Stefano or Alex Lahoe, which might be our next quarterfinal, although we are actually doing it in a slightly weird order to make room for some of the drivers who are on a slight time constraint. But yeah, we will see that in just a minute's time. But that's unfortunate for Owen Magorgi, who did an awesome job to defeat Jan Grangfist, and of course yesterday defeated Michael Falkenhayn, despite that being a demonstration run rather than a run for points. Of course, his originally scheduled opponent, Magnus Ockenhaug, pulled out of the competition at the last minute, unfortunately. But our 8th seeded driver, Alessandro Maggio, will go through to the semi-finals, Alex.
Yeah, Maggio, I think that was a well-deserved victory there. I think the car was just better for Maggio, and it suited his driving style a bit more than Magorgi's. I mean, Magorgi just seemed to be struggling to get it through the corners and to control the high torque, the high power with that Ford engine sitting behind him. And I think Maggio just had it better under control. But now we move on to, I believe, Lahoe versus Stefano as or is it Dragoon versus Stevens? I actually don't know.
Yeah,
it's Lahoe.
Lahoe's going next, apparently.
So the times on this screen are completely irrelevant. Ignore them. They're wrong.
We're going backwards.
Yes, we are going clockwise instead of counterclockwise. I would assume. So it's Lahoe, Stefano, then Dragoon, Stevens, Koroshavin, and Falkenhayn to decide the last position in the semi-finals. But we do have Lahoe versus Stefano now, and I think this one should be pretty close based on the performances we've seen so far.
Well, confusingly, we won't be clockwise or counterclockwise on the schedule, because after this we will do Stevens versus Dragoon, and of course the track itself isn't clockwise or counterclockwise because it's both. But yes. So next up we have Alex Lahoe versus Wesley Stefano. Lahoe, of course, beat Oliver Taras in the round of 16, and yesterday beat Brody Lawless. And then, of course, who is he up against? Wesley Stefano, who absolutely thrillingly beat Carlos Martin yesterday, and then James Knox earlier on. And he will have to go up against his toughest opponent yet, Alex Laho, who was third in the Race of Champions last year, and who was one of the fastest drivers, I think the fastest driver from the round of 16. This could be another really exciting one. Stefano, of course, the lowest seeded driver still in the competition, so anyone rooting for the underdogs will be rooting for Wesley in this one. But Alex Laho, is he a bridge too far, the super light champion? It's not even worth speculating on because we're about to see it right in front of our eyes, Alex.
Yeah, and I hope it was exciting as that last one. I mean, the photo finish between Magaki and Maggio in that second race to bring it to a third standoff. And we have a white Shell Oils coloured car, the number 1, versus a, now that is a properly minty car on the left-hand side. So Stefano versus Lahu. Lahu on the right, Stefano on the left, and away we go. Lahu will have the carousel start and has the nicer of the two, I'd say, but that car, or the front lip even, is bottoming out into both of these corners, and I think it is causing a lot of drivers to be caught out by that lack of grip suddenly from the bottoming out on that front wing, as it would be counted in game. And Lahu through the tunnel seems a lot more controlled than the two drivers that came before him. And Stefano at the sort of checkpoint, the gap is just not as big as it was between Maggio and Magalgi. It was about 4 seconds at the halfway mark through the lap, and Lahu is at 3.5, and I think he's carrying that pace on into the second set of cars today. And look at that gap. It's hardly a competition for Lahu. It is 1 second between himself and Stefano, 1.025 even. And once again, Lahu is the fastest out of anyone on that first lap. I mean, that's a mightily impressive first lap. And in the in the warm-up alone, he set the second fastest lap overall. And Stefano is not that close behind as Lahu. You saw him coming through the final corner on his side as Stefano was going up the bridge. And like we said, the benchmark is just past the bridge into that carousel. So that should just give you an indication of how close that gap really is.
So here is Wesley Stefano then coming out of the tunnel, and we're about to see who gets, and it's easily Alex Laho, I'm afraid to say, for Wesley, who hits the wall. But of course he will get another try, but this is going to be quite a tough one to overcome because the gap in the end, 1.9 seconds, and Laho is the quickest, I think, of no, not quite. Okay, he's less than 1/10 of a second slower than Maggio's time, but that was very close indeed. He was certainly very fast indeed. So Alex Laho will have to start on the left for this next one. Stefano will start on the right, and if Laho wins this, then he goes through to the semi-finals, and it will be no stain on Wesley Stefano whatsoever to go out against someone as competitive as Alex Laho, who is absolutely good enough to be a Super League driver and presumably will be next year. So now we just wait for them to head to the grid once again, and once again they will do battle in this best of 3 tournament. Alex, what do you think about the Ford Capri so far? These cars are a bit of a beast, aren't they?
Yeah, I believe it's a V8, or it would seem like it's a V8 based on just how much it's oversteering. I should actually, let me Google it. That'd be a good idea.
Yeah, Ford Capri RS3100. It's a little bit before all of our time, I'm afraid, so I'm not entirely sure about the specifications of this car.
Should we have a look?
But yeah, if you could look that up, that would be brilliant. So onto the grid.
It is a
go
V6.
again. V6, very nice.
3.1 litre V6.
Ah, it's a Formula 1 car.
They have Formula One cars have less cubic capacity.
Indeed, but they do have a turbocharger and
a massive
DRS,
hybrid system.
And, yeah, absolutely. Right, here we go. Lehoux and Stefano going at it again. We're watching Wesley Stefano as he goes up over the bridge, and with a slightly better start was... Well, he might have had a better start actually, but he was a bit wide through the banking. I think you've got to get the car a little bit more hooked up to take advantage from the natural camber of the road. Now he goes through this slightly elevated section and then down into the tunnel. The lights glinting off the roof of his car. And then this really tricky left-hander here where we saw McGorky getting in the wall earlier on across the line, but it's not the end of the first lap yet because of the confusing way that this track works, where you actually have to cross the start line twice in order to finish a lap. A little wide into the corner, but I think that was on purpose. He was trying to get a tight exit, and then you keep it very tight through the left-hander. And double apex this right-hander, and Lehoux once again has the lead, and it's a big lead. It's 1.4 seconds, so unless he makes a mistake on this lap, Alex Lehoux should go through to the semis, but that's a little bit of an over-rotation. Shouldn't cost him too much, maybe a tenth or two, but that was certainly not exactly the line he was going for there. And now we're on board with Alex Lehoux, sitting on the left-hand side of the car as he goes through the bank left-hander that you have so aptly named the carousel, and hitting the apex late. He's just got a few more corners to go before presumably being confirmed into the semi-finals alongside Alex Maggio. We're going to have a battle of the Alexes, of course Alessandro often shortened to Alex, and there we go. Alex Lehoux is through and once again does his standard display of hitting the wall after the finish line. He is over the moon with that. Alex Lehoux goes through, but congratulations to Wesley Stefano for making it this far as the 29th seed. Great stuff from Wesley, but unfortunately Alex Lehoux just a little bit too tough, Alex.
Yeah, I think Lehoux is just the stronger competitor when it comes to the fight between Lehoux and Stefano. And no disrespect to Stefano at all. A good fight was put up, but inevitably just not enough to advance to the semi-finals, where you can only have 4 drivers remaining. And yeah, I think it's quite well deserved. Now, it does mean both Alessandro Maggio and Lehoux have a chance at the final, and they also have a chance at the third place playoff. So at least 2 more races for everyone that goes through now. And up next will be Tom Stevens and Jan Drangoon. And I think this battle will probably be the fiercest we've seen so far. Of course, Stevens had a great performance yesterday in the round of 16, knocking out Matt Gale. And I mean, it wasn't that much of a competition for Stevens to advance through. I believe it was an immediate 2-0 for Stevens, and no big surprise. Second in Super League, and yeah, that would make plenty of sense. Jan Dragoon, though, does come from Formula Sprint 1, I want to say. I might be wrong.
It's Super Lights.
Super Lights.
But he has also done Super League in the past. But yes, Jan Dragoon, who yesterday beat Kurt Rotjav, and today has already knocked out Shimon Frelich, who was one of the favourites for the final. And he will now have to go up against Tom Stevens. So this is the 2nd seeded driver versus the 7th seeded driver. A very competitive one indeed. And I think anyone who can knock out Shimon Frelich has to be a contender, whether or not you considered them to be so beforehand. I have seen a little bit of dissent about the scheduling, especially in the GPVWC Discord chat. Some people not very happy with these races being done in reverse order, but this has to be done because Dominic Kurashavin was on quite a tight schedule and would not have been able to make the race otherwise. There will be some people, of course, saying that maybe that would be for the best, considering if you don't have if you don't have a clear schedule, it might be best not to sign up to one of these things. But you know, on the other hand, we've seen too many automatic buys already, so I think at this point it only makes sense to accommodate absolutely everyone and make sure that whoever can race does race. So that's why we're doing it in the reverse order, and that's why we're going to see Stevens versus Dragoon next, rather than Kurashavin versus Falkenhayn. Yeah. Okay, yeah. Remco just updating me very quickly that on the graphic you're seeing right now, it implies that Alex Laho will be racing whoever wins out of Kurashavin and Falkenhayn. That is not entirely accurate. Laho is actually going to be going up against Maggio in the semi-finals, so the graphic just has the lines drawn in the wrong direction, I'm afraid to say. And then it will be the winner of Kurashavin versus Falkenhayn versus the winner of Dragoon versus Stevens in the semis. So I'm sure, I mean, we'll update you on that as it happens. I'm sure that won't end up mattering too much, but yeah, just to clear up any confusion that might end up happening. So Tom Stevens is on the left in the red, white, and blue. I'm going to assume on this occasion that represents Great Britain, although there are a lot of countries that come in those colours. And Jan Dragoon is on the right in the white and blue, but no red. There are the lights, and out they go. So away we go once again. Tom Stevens. Ooh, Dragoon ever so slightly faster at the start, but only 6 thousandths in it. Big over rotation from Tom Stevens as he goes into the S's. I wonder if he didn't quite expect the Ford to bite as much as it did, but now gets towards the end of the first half lap. You do have to wonder how much practice some of these drivers have done in these cars, but he looks totally hooked up now. Goes through the left-hander, sparks fly from the front right. This is a much lower car than the Caterham we saw earlier, so it's no surprise they're sparking as they go up onto the banking. Alex, it's so hard to call this one as we come towards the end of the first lap.
Yeah, but it seems like Stevens has a big enough gap between himself and Dragoon to
Oh wow.
yeah, safely in the first lap. Has a huge gap. Dragoon almost 2 seconds on that first tour, 1.9 to be exact. And yeah, Stevens has pretty much got it comfortably. All he has to do now, not make any mistakes and keep a consistent lap time. I mean, that was a mega first lap, a 56.476. One of the fastest outlaps we've seen so far. Dragoon into the final corner. Where's Stevens? He's already passed the carousel. Yes, 6.5 seconds across the midpoint of the lap. And that's not just based on the gap, like the difference between each side of the circuit. That is 6 seconds greater. Well, it's 2 seconds greater than last time around. It was 4.5 on the last lap, so I wouldn't be surprised if Stevens crosses the line much ahead of Dragoon.
There we go.
That is very much the case. 2.7 seconds. Stevens, a dominant performance in the first split.
Yeah, I'm afraid to say I expected that to be significantly closer, but I think that might be to do with the driving styles that were on display between the two of them. Jan Dragoon appeared to be understeering a lot more, and what that means is that he was a little afraid to kick the tail out like Stevens was. Stevens knew that this is the kind of car you drive with the accelerator rather than with the steering wheel, whereas Jan Dragoon was a little bit more tentative. I think he's a slightly smoother driver by nature, but that's not necessarily how you drive a 1970s Ford Capri. So Tom Stevens takes a 1-0 advantage, and by quite some way as well, so we'll have to wait and see if he can keep up that performance for the second race, but I don't see any reason why he wouldn't. And this time he will go from the right-hand side. So Dragoon on the left, Stevens on the right. And whoever wins this will face the winner of the next race in the semi-finals, Alex.
Yeah, and you have to consider, Dragoon did choose to pick the right side for his start. So that means that he's lost on his chosen side, which doesn't really mean that much, but it isn't the greatest way to start your competition. Here's Dragoon, here's the lights. Dragoon left, Stevens right, and away they go. Similar starts for both of them, and not much of a gap across the line. Dragoon only ever so slightly behind, but like you say, just not using as much of the front to try and get into the corners, and not driving with as much throttle perhaps as Stevens is, which is very much how you have to drive this sort of 1970s touring car style car. And yeah, it's very much paying off for Stevens how he's driving it, but it doesn't seem that small of a gap this time. Stevens 3.3 behind Dragoon on the left side of the circuit, and that is mightily close. That's a mightily good run on the left-hand side of the circuit, and Dragoon has everything to catch up now. Stevens will have a bit of an advantage in that hairpin section based on his driving style, and look at that. I say a bit of an advantage. Absolutely gigantic.
Yeah.
1.5 seconds after just one lap, and Stevens pretty much has this in the bag now. His ticket to the semi-finals. All he has to do is complete one more tour, and he has this side of the circuit to go, and then one more run behind Jan Dragoon. And oh my, look at that. Like I say, the benchmark, the carousel up ahead, and he's going up the bridge, and that gap is barely there, 2.1. And through this hairpin section, Tom Stevens has 3 more corners to go before he's punched his ticket to the semi-finals to fight an unknown contender between himself and Michael Falkenhayn or Dominic Kurashavin. Here we go. Stevens crosses the line just very convincingly against Jan Dragoon. And no disrespect to Dragoon, but that was an absolutely mighty performance by Tom Stevens there.
Yeah, congrats to all drivers who have made it this far. Jan Dragoon has done a good job, but I don't think the Ford Capri was his car. It didn't seem to suit him particularly well whatsoever. So unfortunately for him, his road ends here, but Tom Stevens goes through, and also goes through as the highest seeded driver still in the competition. So now we have to wait a few minutes and see whether the next quarterfinal is actually going to go ahead, because we only have one more quarterfinal to go. And the reason we've put it off for so long is because we weren't sure whether Dominic Kurashavin would have returned yet from what he's gone off to do, whatever that might end up being. So the next race is supposed to be Michael Falkenhayn versus Dominic Kurashavin. But like I said before, Dominic Kurashavin has been rather busy. And now we have to wait and see if he actually loads onto the server. Falkenhayn is there, and we still await Dominic Kurashavin. And the problem with this, of course, is that Michael Falkenhayn has already had one bye in this competition. His opponent yesterday pulled out last minute. And so it would be a bit of a shame if Falkenhayn was able to go through with minimal competition. Of course, he did have to beat Mark Schluter, which he did very convincingly and very well indeed. But we still want to see him fight against Dominic Kurashavin, who is here. Fantastic. So Dominic Kurashavin has made it to the server and will be competing in the quarterfinals. Great stuff. And I'm very much looking forward to this one. I was pretty unnerved about this all, because there was also the opportunity that Sandeep Singh would be called up again to fight against Michael Falkenhayn instead. But the trouble with that is that Singh said he didn't want to progress in that way. He said, I was knocked out fairly, so as far as I'm concerned, I'm out. And that meant that Falkenhayn was going to get an automatic bye, but not anymore. Now he will have to fight with the Ukrainian Dominic Kurashavin. I seem to have mixed the two of them somehow. And these two, of course, are the two lowest seeded drivers remaining in the competition now, with the defeat of Wesley Stefano. So whoever goes through out of Falkenhayn and Kurashavin will be the underdog for the semi-finals. And I think that is a place worth fighting for. I know there's people out there who always like to cheer on the underdog no matter what happens. We've got Falkenhayn on the left in the blue car, Kurashavin on the right in the white car. And here come the lights once again, and when they go out, we will be underway. And off we go. A slightly better start for Falkenhayn. But Alex, I'm very glad we've got this quarterfinal underway in the first place.
Yeah, I wasn't honestly expecting it to happen. I was asking Menno before this whether Karashavin was going to be able to make the quarterfinals. But it does seem like we will have an actual battle. Falkenhayn does have to work for it. Doesn't get a second bye, which is the one thing I've disliked the most, is having so many of these battles just not actually counting due to someone backing out or someone not really being there. The gap between Falkenhayn and Karashavin, 5.3 seconds, which is a big difference to what we saw last time around with Tom Stevens. And consider that he was 3.5 seconds behind Tom Stevens to have a 1.5 second advantage across the line. That looks to be about 2 seconds between Karashavin and Falkenhayn. And I am correct, it's about 1.75 seconds. So that is a huge gap for Falkenhayn and a big padding.
That was more representative there. So Falkenhayn absolutely with the lead as we ride on board with Dominic Karashavin. Karashavin, who defeated Lucas Stylen yesterday, and then defeated Sandeep Singh earlier on. Michael Falkenhayn, who got a bye against Shimon Kanda, who did not arrive, and then defeated Mark Schluter earlier on. Is now on his way to defeating Dominic Karashavin as well. This is another one of the cars that Falkenhayn did a lot of practice in, so it is perhaps expected that he would be competitive. And there he goes, puts down an absolute benchmark there, and I think the fastest time of anyone so far in these Ford Capris. I will just check that very quickly, but Falkenhayn does go 1-0 up against Dominic Karashavin. And it's not actually the fastest lap we've seen so far, but it doesn't really matter for now because he's still 1-0 up.
Yeah, Karashavin, I think this car doesn't blend and bond with him just as well as it did yesterday with the MX-5s. I mean, it was pretty convincing yesterday in the MX-5s against Lucas Stylen, but today with the Ford Capri just doesn't seem to be working for him. I mean, the Caterham as well, he had a good performance, but I think Falkenhayn just has much more practice and much more experience with this car, and I think inevitably Karashavin is outmatched here. But there is still a chance for Karashavin, and as long as he doesn't let that first defeat get to him too much, he can easily strike back here. I mean, the laps that were set were not anywhere close to the fastest we've seen. I mean, there was almost a second between the lap Falkenhayn set on that second lap compared to the fastest time we've seen so far. So there's still plenty of time in it. And if Karashavin gets a good run, a good hooked up run, he could easily beat out Falkenhayn. There's definitely potential for it.
I think this is the difference that practice makes, though. Falkenhayn has done well over 100 laps of practice in this car at this track, whereas Dominic Karashavin, I'm not sure if he did do much practice earlier, but we know that he's had scheduling commitments, and as a result of such has only just got back from wherever he just was. And a slightly worse start again, so Falkenhayn leads away, and this is looking good for him. But we're watching Dominic Karashavin now in the early part of the lap, as he goes round the massive curbs, around the sausages, and through the right-hander, the car which says Ford on the windscreen in case you forgot what you were driving, and out towards the end of the first half lap. Big number 1 on his bonnet, but I'm afraid to say I think his run might end up ending here. More sparks through the left-hander. This I hope we have insurance on splitters today, because I think they'll probably be scraped against the ground by the end of this. Same with rear tyres, to be honest. I think we'll get through a fair few of those. Here we have Dominic Karashavin through the left-hander in the tunnel, and it is another convincing lead for Michael Falkenhayn. Probably slightly smaller than it... Actually, it's about the same as it was in the first race, isn't it? About 1.9 seconds. So unless Falkenhayn throws it all away on this last lap now, he should go through to the semi-finals to face Tom Stevens, the highest seeded driver versus the lowest seeded driver still in the competition.
Yeah, and like you say, Falkenhayn just so close to the back of Karashavin at that half lap mark, and you have to consider that the left side of the circuit is about 4-5 seconds longer than the right side of the circuit. Karashavin just unable to get this hairpin section put together nicely enough to compete with Falkenhayn here, and through the final corner it will definitely be Falkenhayn moving to the semi-final, and Karashavin hadn't even come around the final corner by the time Falkenhayn was crossing the line, and it is a relatively large gap, 3.4 seconds across the line between himself and Falkenhayn. And I think, unfortunately, Karashavin did a good performance, but just not good enough to compete with Falkenhayn here, who moves on to fight Tom Stevens in the semi-finals.
Yeah, and congratulations to Dominic for getting this far, of course. But Falkenhayn will move on. He will be the only driver remaining in the competition now with a seed higher than 10. So, only 4 drivers remaining now: Maggio, Lahu, Stevens, and Falkenhayn. And we will move on to yet another new car, which we will introduce in just a moment. I believe, unless it's been reversed again, it should be Lahu versus Maggio next. Unless, of course, they have decided to reverse it due to scheduling, but I guess we will wait to find out about all of that. And I will update you, of course, on those when we see it. But Alex Lahu has now loaded into the server in our next car. And I can announce that the next car will be a stock car. Now, last year we did have a little bit of a NASCAR battle. This year we're going to do exactly the same thing. It clearly worked well. These cars are the most powerful ones that we are going to feature in this whole tournament. They are absolutely huge. They've got, and I don't know exactly how much power a NASCAR style stock car has, but maybe 700, 800. And those all going through the rear tires. That's going to be quite a sight, and quite a sound as well. Can you imagine standing in that tunnel and hearing the NASCAR come roaring past you? I guess we're about to see that. So our next battle will be Alex Lahu versus Alessandro Maggio, the battle of the Alexes. Here's a reminder of how they got to this point. Alessandro Maggio defeated Silver Joffert with a bye, because Joffert was not able to make his round of 32. Maggio then very nearly got a bye against Kasper Kuritz, but Lucas Thylin jumped in to take his place, but Maggio defeated him anyway in what was quite a close finish. And then Maggio defeated Owen McGorgy in the quarterfinals to make it to where he is now. As for Alex Lahu, he defeated Brody Lawless yesterday, and then today he has knocked out Oliver Taras and Wesley Stefano. So the 8th seeded driver, Maggio, versus the 5th seeded driver, Lahu. And who will come out on top in the first race between our highly powered NASCAR machines? This is going to be an entertaining one. Alex, have you driven much stock car machinery? What's it like around a tight little twisty course like this?
Well, as you know, they're made for turning left primarily, so yes, this should be pretty fun. I mean, you can see the asymmetric bodywork there on the left-hand side of Alex Lahu's car. You can see how it sweeps in more to the left than on the right. I mean, on the right it's a bit thicker, so this should certainly be fun with the asymmetrical downforce that these cars will provide, and I think it might be a bit of a disadvantage here. Even though the power is greater, the grip may be less, but these Camrys will be battling one another right until the end. 2 laps of this, and Lahu sliding that car again once more, and still using the accelerator pedal, which does have a lot more torque beneath his right foot this time around. And you can just see how much more power and how much more acceleration he has going into the carousel. A bit more downforce as well than all the other cars. And yeah, it's just a lot more planted, and it will get to the corners a lot quicker with that very, very heavy right pedal. beneath his feet and a lot of power to go along with it. And as we head to the end of the first lap, it's going to be relatively evenly matched. LaHoo very so slightly ahead across the finish line, 0.086 according to the timing tower, 0.077 according to RaceView. Maggio now has the tighter, or the looser part of the circuit in his first half, and across the line, LaHoo does have a slight advantage in the carousel already, and Maggio has to contend with this tight hairpin section. 6 corners stand between him and a battle between Alex LaHoo and a potential race 1 victory, or a heat 1 victory through the final corner. Here's Maggio. Wait until we see LaHoo. Maggio hits the wall!
And LaHoo steals it! Oh my goodness, what a finish! He backs it across the line, but LaHoo goes 1-0 up. That was going to be an extremely close finish, but Maggio just pushes it slightly too far and bounces off the barriers on the inside, and that's the difficulty of these vehicles. I will say they are running in road course spec, so they're not exactly, or they're not as asymmetrical as they otherwise would be, and stock cars do road course races sometimes. But yes, amazing stuff there with Alex LaHoo just sneaking it out and forcing Maggio into an error. But as they cross the line between laps 1 and lap 2, they were separated by less than a tenth of a second. And that shows you just how close these two should end up being. We're about to head into the second race of this best of 3, and I still don't know who's going to win this. So Alex, who's your money on? Alex or Alex?
Well, I'm going to go with Alex. I mean, yeah, Alex LaHoo. I mean, how's
You're
that
betting on yourself?
Yes, I'm going to win. I am going to win. I'm going to be a surprise contender. 3 people in the final. Except I'm going to cheat and I can fly around.
Okay.
I think I'd win.
Nah, I'd win. Onto the grid we go. Alessandro Maggio now on the left in the yellow stock car, and LaHoo is on the right, just out of view. There we are. These cars, of course, based on Toyota Camrys. They're officially called Titans in the mod that we have, although they are more like the Toyota Camrys than any of the other cars. Not that there's much difference anyway, it's mainly just bodywork. Away we go, Alessandro Maggio with a slightly, I think LaHoo actually with a slightly faster start, but we're watching Alessandro Maggio, the car bouncing around on its suspension into the right-hander, the suspension made of wood by the looks of things, and making the car crawl around the middle part of the circuit. Let's take a look at the, oh god, as I'm, sorry, getting very confused with my my race view. The lap times showing that these stock cars are about 4 seconds quicker than the Camrys we saw not too long ago. They are easily the fastest cars that we've seen so far today, despite their cornering difficulties. And to be honest, it says a lot about the other cars that we've had, that these cars have the most downforce. Out of the final corner, and once again, it's going to be a close one. LaHoo leads by 1/10 of a second over Alessandro Maggio. And remember, LaHoo won the first race, so if he can keep that advantage on this second lap, he will go through to the grand final, where he will face whoever wins the next matchup after this. There will also be a third place matchup, as far as we're aware. So whoever loses this is not necessarily out of the competition. They could still win bronze. But anyway, we continue to watch Alex LaHoo. He goes into the right-hander. Little bit of an over-rotation, but that might just be how you drive these cars on a circuit like this. The rear tyres will be crying enough. Out of the final corner, who's going to get it? That's where the mistake was made last time. LaHoo goes through and will be our first finalist. The driver who was 3rd position overall last year now goes at least 1 better and will face whoever makes it through against them.
Yeah, Maggio must have made a mistake. Or at least that's what it seems to have happened in that final section. Was 3 tenths slower than LaHoo was in the left-hand side of the circuit. LaHoo, like you said, is the finalist. Maggio will move on to the 3rd place playoff though, and whoever they will be competing against will be decided in a battle between Tom Stevens and Michael Falkenhayn. And that should be pretty interesting. The highest seeded driver and the lowest seeded driver will compete against each other in the semi-finals for that final spot. Yeah, that's correct. The final spot.
Yes. Indeed. So that is what's about to come up right now. You can see well, it hasn't quite been confirmed just yet, but yes, you can see that Zeeuw just beat Maggio and confirmed his space in the final, and it will now be Foulkes versus Stevens. Foulkes, who put in a lot of practice in the other cars. I'm not sure if he's had a chance to practice in this Titan stock car yet. There you go, Zeeuw is now in the final. But of course, he's in the same boat as Tom Stevens. They all found out about this car at the same time. And Tom Stevens, who is the second seeded driver and the highest seeded driver still in the competition, will go up against him in this next showdown. So we're about to see them head to the grid and get ready for the first of at least 2 races in these brilliantly fast cars. The Stock Car 2018, they're called, in the mod that they come from. And you can see Maggio has been confirmed in the 3rd place battle. So I'm hoping the 3rd place battle goes ahead. Menno did use the word if when he was talking about it earlier on. And thank you again to Menno Clont for keeping us updated on how this event is going to work. Menno doing a lot of work behind the scenes. But yes, I don't see why there wouldn't be a 3rd place matchup. And of course there was last year. That's how we know that Alex Zeeuw was confirmed as the 3rd placed finisher. But of course we still have to confirm who will be up against Alex Zeeuw in the final. Will it be the Super League runner-up Tom Stevens, or will we have the surprise entrant of Michael Foulkes, who has not so much as set foot in a Super League car as far as we're aware, certainly not in an official session. And maybe some teams will have to start eyeing him up for next season if he isn't confirmed anywhere in particular. Because this guy has talent, and more so, he has commitment. He's clearly able to put plenty of laps in to practice for these events. So Stevens will go on the left. Stevens, number 21. Foulkes will go on the right, number 00. Fun fact about NASCAR actually, did you know that you're actually allowed to have 2 number 0s on the grid at the same time if one of them is a single 0 and the other one is a double 0? Those are counted as different numbers, annoyingly.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It makes sense, but then you say 0 and you're like, do you mean 0 or 00? But anyway.
It's 0 and double 0, I think.
Yes. Away we go, and a much better start for Stevens, about 0.3 of a second, maybe over that, but he was a little too tight heading through the right-hander, seemed to check up slightly as he had to avoid the barriers. We're now watching Tom Stevens in the middle part of the right-hand course. If you catch my drift, this is quite difficult to explain, but across the line he goes and up and over the bridge, and we can't see how Foulkes is doing in relation to Stevens just yet. We have to wait for the split at the end of the first lap to determine exactly how they line up against each other. Just a reminder that you can see live timing. It's on raceview.com, and the server is GPVWC Sim Racing #2. And at the end of the first lap, Stevens has a decisive lead of 1.3 seconds. So Stevens builds up a lead on the first lap of the race, and Foulkes has a lot of work to do now if he is to make it to this final. Maybe the stock car just not one of the cars he got around to practicing in, and Stevens just able to take the advantage in the early stages. But we watch Foulkes now to see if he has any more left in the tank in that double 0. Out towards the wall, keeps it tight, now through the right-hander that seemed to slightly catch out Stevens on the first lap, but he's still okay. Runs through the grass on both sides of the course, taking the shortest line that he physically can, And towards the end of the lap, who's it going to be, Stevens or Falkenhayn? Presumably Stevens by what we've seen so far. And there we go. And it was convincing, very convincing at the end. The gap is 2.6 seconds at the end of all of that. Now, does that mean that Stevens was the fastest stock car driver?
Yes, it
My
was.
race view's messing me up again, but yes, it appears that Stevens did set a fastest lap for the stock car competition, and definitely still the favourite for the win now that some of his other main challengers such as McGorgy and Granqvist have been knocked out. But he needs to do that all over again to be absolutely confirmed through to the final. He will now go through, or he will now go from the left-hand side of the grid. Falkenhayn will go from the right, and he's got to do it all over again, Alex. Alex, I've just noticed he was over a tenth of a second faster than Lahoo in the stock cars, and we normally see them go even faster in their second heats. So, do you think that's a bit worrying for Lahoo? We know that in the final, they're going to use one of each car that's been used in the competition so far. So, if it does go to a tiebreaker, we could end up seeing them racing in the stock cars again.
I mean, if you do a quick comparison, Stevens has been faster in the MX-5 in the previous, not in the previous car actually, in the Ford Capri. Lahoo was faster, so it really just depends on the order of cars at this point. And it seems like Stevens again with the better start, and Falkenhayn just not able to pull off the line as easily as his competitor, and doesn't seem to be able to use the extra power of the NASCAR to his advantage. Just seems to be struggling here. But nonetheless, Falkenhayn has to build that 3-second advantage back across the line. We're expecting 4 seconds if the gap was to be anything like last time. Wow, Tom Stevens, 2.7 seconds.
Yeah.
It was 4 seconds when Falkenhayn was chasing on the left-hand side of the circuit on the previous go. And I think for Stevens now, this is pretty much in the bag. We're looking at a 1.4 second advantage already for Tom Stevens. And there's Stevens crossing the line. There's Falkenhayn crossing the line. It's 1.3 on the timing tower, 1.3 on race view as well. So yeah, that's a huge advantage for Stevens already. All he has to do is keep that advantage. I think Stevens here just has the better pace in the left-hand side of the circuit. I think he just has his prowess there and is able to capitalize on his mistakes or on his opponent's mistakes in this trickier section, in the hairpin section here, if any mistakes are being made. But it seems Stevens just has the huge advantage on the left-hand side of the circuit and is able to manage with the right-hand circuit just as well through this hairpin section, drifts around the corners, very controlled, and does secure his place in the final against Alex Lahoo. Falkenhayn will be battling for third place against Maggio. But this one should be interesting, and this is exactly what I was hoping for from the semi-final. Stevens versus Lahoo will be a very, very interesting battle.
So there you go then. Tom Stevens secures his space in the final alongside Alex Lahoo. Falkenhayn will go up against Maggio for third position and the bronze medal. And we're seeing it being written out in real time. This is lovely stuff, as Lahoo seems to have fallen off the edge of the box. Very good. So don't go anywhere. The first thing we're going to see is the third place matchup, and that's going to work slightly differently to how the other races have worked so far. It's still going to be a best of 3, but we are actually going to use different cars. So throughout the course of the competition so far, we've seen Mazda MX-5s, we've seen Caterham Academy cars, we've seen Ford Capris, and we've seen stock cars. But way back when some drivers were made to qualify for this event, they were made to qualify in Alpine GT4 cars, which are actually the fastest cars available here. As a result of that, the third placed drivers are going to first of all go up against each other in the Alpine GT4s. Then they will have to go up against each other in the Mazda MX-5s. If we then have a 2-0 victory, we will know our bronze medalist. But if not, they will do a tiebreaker in the Caterham Academy car. So basically, it's a best of Race of Champions tournament to decide who will get the bronze medal. If you enjoy what you're about to see, then I've got good news for you, because the final will be done in a very similar way, but it will be a best of 5. Meaning that not only will we definitely see the Alpine, the Mazda, and the Caterham, but if it goes to a tiebreaker, we may also see the Ford Capri and the stock car all over again. But yes, Alex, Michael Falkenhayn now versus Alessandro Maggio for the bronze medal. I think either of these drivers would deserve it for different reasons, but they've got to earn it on track now, and I think it really means a lot that they're going to have to do it in several different cars. You there, Alex? Everything okay?
I guess something's not working. You said something about Falkenhayn versus Maggio and Stevens versus LaHue. That
Yes.
Both of them very deserving to be where they are, and I think either competitor in either competition has a very equal chance of winning it and a very deserved chance of winning it. So yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with you there. But I definitely think Stevens versus LaHue will be very, very interesting, and I can't wait to see that one. The runner-up in Super League versus the champion in Super Lights. And I think we're looking at two very interesting races, like you said.
Indeed. I'm interested to see how Alex LaHue does here, because he says, "My weakest car," with many R's and a lot of capital letters. And he hasn't specified what his weakest car actually is. If I had to take a guess, maybe the Alpine, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. Alex Foulkes, I wonder who that is. Says goat emoji. Very good. But
No
yes.
bias.
Once again, very good to see you all in the YouTube chat, keeping us entertained, keeping us up to date, and I very much hope that you're enjoying this as much as we are. I'm not going to lie, Alex. I feel like last year was significantly more predictable than this year. And I'm enjoying this year a heck of a lot more. I think we've had so much more drama, so much more intrigue, and I actually think we're going to end up with a much better final as well.
Definitely. I mean, in the matchup between Granqvist and Megagi, everyone was expecting it to go the way of Granqvist, and it ended up being Megagi. And after that performance by Megagi, everyone was expecting the quarterfinals between Megagi and Maggio to go the way of Megagi. But it went the way of Maggio. So, yeah, it's been a topsy-turvy sort of battle here to get to the point where we are. It's genuinely been a battle of very impressive results. But here we are for the third place playoff with the Alpine GT4s. Maggio on the right, Falkenhayn on the left. We are away, and Maggio gets a slightly better start. And into that carousel, this GT4 is a very racy car. In R Factor 2. It's got a lot of grip, and also is very, very powerful. Has a nice weight to torque ratio and a weight to power ratio that makes it a very, very nimble car, as Maggio has demonstrated through this first section. And now into the hairpin section, you're just seeing how much front grip that Alpine has, and into the third from the penultimate corner, into the penultimate corner. Only one more before we'll see a true gap between Falkenhayn and Maggio, but Maggio does seem to have the advantage here, and it's a big advantage as well. There's Falkenhayn 1.5 seconds behind across the line for the first lap, and Falkenhayn has to contend with what I would believe for him is a more difficult hairpin section. Every time he's been losing out, it's been on this right side of the circuit where he seems to really struggle. And you can see why. He can't get it round properly. He's struggling on the exit, struggling on the entry, and it's just not working that well. And I don't think this car is gluing quite as well with him as much as he would hope so. Maggio, on the other hand, seems to be completely compatible with the Alpine. And we've got 2 more corners to go for Falkenhayn, probably 4 more corners for Maggio through the tunnel. Here's Falkenhayn into the final corner. Maggio
And
crosses
Remco
the
gets
line.
it.
What a gap that was. 2.8 seconds, and Maggio
Wow.
gets the lead.
What a race from Alessandro Maggio, and I am actually quite surprised about that. I have to admit, one thing I was going to bring up but forgot to is that obviously the Alpine is the car they used in the qualifying session, and Falkenhayn was the fastest in the qualifying session. So I was expecting that with Falkenhayn's prior experience of this car, that he would be able to carry that into this race and potentially take an early advantage, but he did not. Sorry, as I get the hiccups again. Alex Maggio was able to take the early lead. So it's 1-0 to Alex Maggio. And the reason he's disappeared from the server is because he's now getting himself into a familiar friend, the Mazda MX-5, which we saw in competition just yesterday. So if you were a fan of that racing, then very good news. They're back. Here's Alessandro Maggio just loading in. And of course, every driver who has raced these cars has won in these cars. That's how they are still in the tournament. Actually, come to think of it, Falkenhayn didn't race in these cars, did he? Because he got a bye against Shimon Kandit. He ended up doing a demonstration run against Owen McGorgy, where McGorgy ended up beating him. And actually, sorry, I completely forgot. Maggio also got a bye because he was supposed to be up against Silver Yoffert. So we've seen neither of these drivers competitively racing in these Mazda MX-5s, and this is their first chance to do so. Great stuff.
Yeah, technically it means that Foulkes has more race experience. Doesn't mean it counted for anything. But Maggio, actually, on this warm-up, I know we're watching it purely because we have nothing else to watch, but he seems to be struggling with contending with the MX-5's quirks. You know, it's a very, very light car with a decent power-to-weight ratio as well. And it's able to get that rear end swung around, but that's not how Maggio drives. He tends to keep it more under control, so I think this warm-up will be very instrumental here in deciding whether it'll be Maggio or Michael Falkenhayn that will take the victory here. Falkenhayn seemed to be a bit careful yesterday in the show battle between himself and Magalgi, and if anything, like if that's a representation. Maggio has beat Magalgi before, so, you know, using... I wouldn't say it's strong logic at all, but you can kind of extrapolate it, where Maggio beat Magalgi, and Magalgi beat Falkenhayn, so who knows at this rate.
Well, it's an interesting way of looking at it, but yes, I do think Maggio's probably the favourite for this matchup, and I think Falkenhayn would do well to emerge onto the server soon, because Maggio will be a little bit more warmed up than him as well. And of course, he'll only get one chance in this car, because after this, that's it. If he loses it, then unfortunately for him, he will come away from today with nothing but memories. Although then again, I think he has done a great job to get to the third place matchup nonetheless. Falkenhayn is now in the server, so we are not far away at all from the start of what may end up being the final matchup between these two. And Maggio just making it through the middle part of the circuit. Alex, it's been a great couple of days of racing, and unfortunately it's drawing to a close now. But we still have plenty more to come. Not just between these two, because they have one race to come at least, but then of course the 3 to 5 races that will determine the overall champion of champions for 2024. And I think, to be honest, I would be surprised. I'm looking ahead to the final already, but I would be surprised if it doesn't go to at least one tiebreaker.
I would say so as well. It's going to be very, very balanced between Stevens and Lahoo. They both have their strengths in their cars. And they both have their weaknesses with certain cars as well. So, yeah, it's definitely going to be a battle of who has the stronger sort of experience with each car, who is more well adapted to each car. And I believe we are now moving into the race session, or the first of the race sessions, and we are definitely Maggio will be on the left side. Falkenhayn will be on the right side. And yeah, I think Falkenhayn has the better position of starting for himself. Oh, no, never mind. I think we're switching. No, we're not. Falkenhayn will have the right side. Maggio will have the left side. And Falkenhayn is probably where he wants to be. Like I said in the last race, struggling on the right hand, on the left-hand side, but technically it goes to the right, whatever. Yeah, on the right-hand side of the circuit, he is struggling with those hairpins, but here come the lights for the second heat, the second split with the Mazda MX-5s, and it's a decent start for both of them. Up the hill will be Falkenhayn, and under the bridge will go Maggio into the hairpin section. Falkenhayn does get a slightly better start, but he's round already, and he's spun! That's a horrible way to start it off. Oh, that's not good for Falkenhayn at all. And that's going to be a horrible start. I think he's struggling to get it into reverse, and he's frustrated.
Well,
just going into the wall and giving up.
that could... I don't know why he's just accelerating into the wall then. Either he has just given up and he's showing his frustration. They might be about to come into contact here. And... oh,
Yep.
And there's a touch. And Maggio laps Michael Falkenhayn and will surely claim the bronze medal now. All he has to do is keep it clean to the end. But I was wondering also whether that might have been an equipment failure for Michael Falkenhayn, just the way that he continued to accelerate into the barriers. And that would be a very unfortunate way to end today's action. But yeah, that means, of course, that Alessandro Maggio will almost undoubtedly now be the bronze medalist and go through to, well, won't go through to anything because that'll be it, but he'll come away with something. Falkenhayn has done a great job to make it this far. He had to qualify for the event, should theoretically have been one of the bottom 4 seeded drivers, ended up inheriting the 14th seed due to someone else pulling out, but in theory should have been about seed 29, and as a result was not expecting to make it quite this far in the tournament, but put in the practice, put in the effort, and I think very much deserves to have made it to the semi-finals and to the bronze medal match. But it has gone the way of Alessandro Maggio, just through being more consistent, just being better in a broader variety of cars. And there it is. Alessandro Maggio is now confirmed as the bronze medalist for the 2024 GPVWC Race of Champions. Alex, just a word on Maggio there.
Yeah, I think Maggio in that warm-up session was showing he did exactly the same mistake as Falkenhayn would have out of that carousel corner. Spinning on the exit, and I think Falkenhayn just wasn't warmed up and wasn't ready for the kind of conditions and the kind of, you know, unexpected bumps that would throw off, you know, his lines and his car and upset it. So yeah, I think Maggio benefited just as much from the sort of help he got with the warm-up, but also just more consistent and had a stronger overall pace throughout the weekend, or throughout the Thursday and Wednesday weekend. I wish it was.
Yes. However, we are now waiting for the moment you've all been waiting for. Admittedly, about 25 minutes early, but that's how this scheduling works sometimes. And we are getting prepared for the grand finale between Tom Stevens, Super League runner-up, and Alex Laho, the Super Light champion. Who will be the champion of champions for 2024? Well, that will determine on what happens over the next 3 to 5 races. We will go back again. There you see, Maggio confirmed as the 3rd place champion, the bronze medalist. But yes, we will go back to the Alpine GT4, the fastest car available here, with the most downforce of any car on the roster. And then after that, we will definitely be seeing another race from the Mazda MX-5s and another race from the Caterham Academy cars. Whether or not we end up seeing the Ford Capris or the NASCAR stock cars again really does depend on what happens in these next 3 races. If it is a clean sweep, which I would be surprised about, then we won't end up seeing either of those 2 cars, but I think we're going to see at least one tiebreaker from this matchup. And I'm very much... What the... Okay, good.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, we were just cutting to the next session. Sorry, I thought he'd hit the wall and got flung through it.
I
That was
thought
bizarre.
the exact same. Oh, they've got the same livery. Come on, guys.
That can't be allowed. Come on.
Please.
Well, there's Stevens. Okay, well at least we know who's starting on what side.
Oh no, they're different colors. One's yellow,
yeah.
one's orange. There you go.
Okay, well, basically the same. Anyway, it's Stevens on the left and Laho on the right, and you'll be able to see on the bottom right-hand side of the screen who we are watching out of the two of them. But yeah, clearly teammates' liveries here, maybe showing solidarity with each other, saying a well done for getting to where they are now. And the grand final of the 2024 Race of Champions is underway, with Stevens getting a slightly better start by just about half a tenth of a second over Alex Laho. He kicks up the dirt as he heads into the left-hand side of the track and breaks for the tight hairpins. This is where the downforce of the Alpine GT4s comes into play. I sometimes find these cars a little bit understeery, GT4 cars, just because you've got so much downforce on the tail and not so much on the front. But I tell you what, compared to some of these other cars like the Caterham Academies, these will feel like Formula 1 machines. Now we go through towards the tunnel with Tom Stevens. This hasn't been the cleanest of laps, actually, from Stevens so far. He seemed a little bit ragged. Maybe the final getting to him slightly, and you can tell that that has given Laho the advantage. The advantage goes the way of Alex Laho by a quarter of a second now, heading into the second lap, and we ride on board with Laho coming out of the banking and towards the tunnel. But yes, he's going to go one up so long as he doesn't make any major mistakes here, Alex.
Yeah, I think when I was looking at the gap across...
Alex, I think you may be having some more internet issues, I'm afraid to say, but we're still watching Alex Laho here through the hairpins and towards the end of the lap. This will determine who has the advantage after just one race of a best of 5, the longest matchup we'll see, and it's Alex Laho. So Alex Laho, the 5th-seeded driver, so far is beating the 2nd-seeded driver Tom Stevens, but there is still a long way to go. They will now swap over to the Mazda MX-5 Cup cars and do it all over again to determine if Alex will go 2-0 up, or whether they will be 1-1 up and require a race from the Ford Capris at the end of all of this. Are you back, Alex?
I'm gonna quickly unplug and replug. Give me a sec.
Okie dokie. Yeah, I hope that that was the same on your end, viewers, because sometimes I think that someone's having an internet connection issue and I'm actually talking over them because of the way that Discord works. So hopefully everything's okay. But yeah, Remco says that that's what's happening on his end as well. Okie dokie. So we've still got one Alpine GT4 out there. Come on, guys. Switch over to the MX-5. There's Tom Stevens. The white MX-5 with the red roll cage. As I said yesterday, MX-5 Cup racing is fantastic to see and always worth a day out. It looks as if they might be in the same livery again, actually. I think I caught a brief glimpse of Alex Laho also in a white car. Yep, there we go. Oh no, he's in a grey car. Jolly good. Grey silvery one. It's just the way that the shadows made them look. They're both gone to the same side of the course, actually, wanting to practice the same bit of circuit. But yes, welcome back, Alex. You doing okay?
Yeah, I'm so frustrated that it cut out at that exact moment. I did get to see them cross the line. I did get to see the gap was a bit bigger than we were honestly anticipating it to be. But there's different cars now, and there's still plenty of opportunities for Stevens to fight back. He only has to lose, or he can only lose 2 more, as Stevens, I think, perished and lost the rear end through the carousel, just as Falkenhayn did last time around in the MX-5. So it seems like these MX-5s do have a bit of a problem getting around that long, sweeping, banked, cambered left corner. How many adjectives can I give to it? I don't know.
Lorenzo Aterovich has posted a conspiracy theory that you're giving up your internet for Laho. So, Alex for Alex, I guess, but here we go.
I would never.
You would never. Yeah, well, you'd better not, because that would be sabotaging the competition. But we've got Alex Lahoe now on the left-hand side of the grid in the grey silvery car. We've got Stevens on the right, and once again we are underway, and a very even start, possibly slightly better for Stevens. Oh, actually, it's much better for Stevens. 0.2 of a second. That can mean a heck of a lot in a race like this. Once again, kicking up the dirt, but that's what you always see through that sector there. It's simply the quickest way around the corners. Alex Lahoe here in the beautifully angry-looking Mazda MX-5. And that is not necessarily the best line through the double apex there. He apexed rather early, kind of rotated the car about a quarter of the way through the corner. Normally you want to rotate it about halfway through, but I'm being very picky here because it's the final, and that could always cost you. We're on board with Lahoe now through the tunnel towards the left-hander. It's another double apex, but the other way around, and Stevens has the advantage still, and it is about 0.6 of a second, 6.5 of a second to the advantage of Tom Stevens. This could well end up being 1-1 at the end of all of this one, and we could end up requiring a battle from the Ford Capris, and I am very, very much here for that, Alex. Let's hope this keeps up as it is.
Yeah, I think what happened to Lahoe there was he was just, I don't think, able to push as hard as he would have wanted to, pushing through the left-hand side of the circuit. But Stevens has lost a bit of that advantage, sliding the rear out of the penultimate corner on the left-hand side of the circuit, and lost a bit of time on the traction. 3.6 seconds across the midpoint, and drifting through the penultimate corner. One more corner lies between him and equalizing in the final. Tom Stevens there, who does not get a 2-0 advantage over Stevens. It's a 1-1, and we'll head to some Ford Capri action.
Well, we've got the Caterhams to go first, but yes, we will be requiring the Ford Capris later on. It looked as if Lahoe had brought back a bit of that gap towards the end there, but then touched the wall out of the final corner, just pushing the car right to the limit to try to overcome Tom Stevens. But yes, Stevens does bring it to 1-1. We are back to dead even in the finals again, and those first two races might as well not have even happened. But now we wait to see the Caterham Academy cars, which, goodness, it feels like ages since we've seen these guys in action, but here they are. Tom Stevens has gone for a green one, number 29, I think that is. And we wait to see Alex Lahoe re-emerge onto the server in the purple one, number 1. I think that's a statement of intent there from Alex Lahoe, the number on the side of the car. And off onto the track they go once again, practicing their starts. Yeah, they're going to do a proper practice start, and both of them slightly outside of the grid slot. Tut-tut.
To be fair, it doesn't automatically for them, so they don't have to worry about that anyway. It's fine.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. You don't have to be good at lining up when the game does it for you. Now, Alex, these cars, as we saw earlier, are very understeery and also a little bit ragged. So who do you think that's going to favour a bit more?
I think Tom Stevens was looking the calmest in the Caterhams earlier. It just seems to fit his driving style, the drifty, like almost needy requirements of the Caterham to try and get it nicely through the corners. He can just manage that a whole lot better than a lot of other drivers. I say that, commentator's curse, as he spins around just past the second long corner, and every single time the session changeover is a bit of comedy between the rounds, and Stevens will start on the right-hand side this time with Lahoe on the left. Did he not start on the left-hand side?
Stevens on the left, Lahoe on the right. Yeah, I think you're getting a bit muddled up there, but here we go. So Stevens in the green car on the left, Lahoe in the purple car on the right. We wait for the lights to come on again before we get underway for our third round of 5. No matter what happens here, we will go to another round because they are 1-1. They're dead equal on points, showing you just what a worthy matchup this is. There are the lights, and once again, we are underway and they're still dead even, but I think Tom Stevens will lead as they cross the start line, although the gap much closer, just 7/700ths of a second. 7/10 would be a bit extreme, but we're on board with Stevens now, going over the curbs, using all of them now as he gets it into the right-hander, clips it later, keep it tight for the left-hander. That's just how you do this part of the course. And then towards the end of the first half lap now, look at that. You steer left more than you steer right through that right-hander there. Brilliant stuff. Do we get sparks through that corner? We didn't really see them from that camera angle, but I'm sure there was some. And then towards the bit where we just saw him having a spin in the warm-up session. He's fine this time around though. That's the corner where Shimon Frelich had an accident earlier on, knocking himself out of the tournament. But Stevens much cleaner this time around. And towards the end of the first lap, who has the advantage? Who will lead in our clash of the titans? It's Alex Lahoe, and considerably so. It's nearly a second. The official margin, according to RaceView, is 0.986. Lahoe has this in the bag if he can hook this last lap up. This is looking very good now for the purple number one, and we're watching him on what may end up being a victory tour in this particular car, knowing full well that this won't quite seal it up just yet, Alex.
Yeah, and I think it's been quite a decent performance by Lahoe so far, and 1 second, 2.5 seconds across the line. There you go. He's gained another second this lap. It was 3.6 on the last half tour. Now 2.559 according to the timing tower, which is the only reference we truly have. Lahoe through the final corner on the right hand side of the circuit, the long sweeping double apex right hander. Tom Stevens just not able to get close to Alex Lahoe in the Caterhams here, and it seems like Lahoe seems to just enjoy the more obedient cars, the cars that react to his inputs a lot more. The MX-5 is a bit of a brick on wheels, but the Caterham and the Alpine have been really, really responsive. So I think the Capri could be an even throw-up between Tom Stevens and Lahoe here.
That was a big gap in the end, 2.3 seconds to Alex Lahoe, and that is why he is going into this next round 1 point up, and it is match point for Alex Lahoe. If he wins this next race, then that is it, and he is confirmed as the champion of champions for 2024. But if Tom Stevens wins it, then we will get an ultimate decider in the Titan stock cars. And I tell you what, personally, with no bias whatsoever, that is what I want to see. So if you're hoping for an ultimate decider, which I certainly am, then root for Tom Stevens in this next matchup. But I tell you what, whoever wins this will richly deserve it. And here we go onto the track again. A little bit of a practice run between the two of them. Looking at the laps from the Capris earlier on, Lahoe was actually faster than Stevens, but he's got to do it again in order to take the victory here. And we know that it takes just one mistake to swing it back in the other direction. If a driver ends up in the barriers, then it doesn't matter how good you are in that car the rest of the time, you are certainly not going to be coming away from it with the victory. So, can he do it, Alex? Here we go.
Yeah, I think this one will be the most even of the two. It's a very, very rear responsive car, but also will listen to the inputs of the driver. Lahoe likes to be in control. Stevens loves to get that rear end around the corner before the front end, and so I think this will be a pretty decent matchup for both of them. And crossing the line simultaneously in the warm-up session, and that was quite beautiful to watch.
They couldn't have done that better if they'd tried. Maybe they did try, I don't know, but that was brilliant. So, if they can do that in the race, that would be pretty thrilling, wouldn't it? A photo finish between the two of them. It'll be Lahoe on the left, Stevens on the right. We wait to see them side by side. Lahoe once again going for the number one. This really is a statement of intent from him. Stevens in the car that he was using before, the red, white and blue. On the right-hand side. And once again, we await the lights. Like I said, it is match point to Alex Lahoe. If he wins this, then he takes a well-deserved Champion of Champions victory for 2024. But if Tom Stevens wins it, we will go down to a championship finale with the Titan stock cars. Go, go, go once again, and it's a slightly better start for... Oh, it's pretty much even. Stevens, even Stevens. I accidentally made a pun there, but Stevens maybe half a tenth of a second ahead across the line. But he was a bit wide. Oh, he's touched the wall. He's touched the wall. Could that be it now for Tom Stevens very early in the Ford Capri round? It really depends on what Alex Lahoe is doing. Of course, they can't see what the other driver is doing. They are in a Discord call together, but both of them are both muted and deafened, so they can't interact with each other, and they don't know what is going on. The tail hanging out now for Tom Stevens, just like it always does. He's drifting the car around. It's like watching a Toyota Supra in a Fast and Furious movie. He's coming towards the line, and is Alex Lahoe going to be up, as I expect that he will be? I think he's going to have a decent lead here. Oh, it's closer than I thought it would be, but it's still just under half a second. It's 0.48 to the advantage of Alex Lahoe. So unless he makes a mistake here, I think we might be about to see a champion crowned. Let's ride on board with Alex Lahoe and see if he gets it hooked up into the right-hander. Half a lap to go. He's got the bank corner to the left. There it is. This is where it all went slightly wrong for Stevens. He touched the wall on the outside about here. Oh, Lahoe touches the wall on the inside. This could go back the other way. Keep watching it. This is going to be tense. We're on board with Alex Lahoe, heading towards the tunnel. Now, whose mistake was bigger? Final corner coming up now for Alex Lahoe. It's going to be close. He slightly over-rotates it. Out of the final turn, and Lahoe is the champion of champions of 2024 by 0.6 of a second. A brilliant race that came down to a decider race in the Ford Capris. Unfortunately didn't go down to an ultimate decider with the Titans, but whatever the case, Lahoe richly deserves this victory, and the 5th seeded driver, the super light champion of 2024, can add an extra bit of virtual silverware to his virtual silverware cabinet. Brilliant stuff, Alex.
Yeah, Alex Lahoe, just probably one of the most deserved drives there. That being said, it wasn't without Tom Stevens putting in some brilliant performances along the way, especially in that MX-5 car, just absolutely dominant in that particular round. But it seems like it was just not enough for Tom Stevens. Lahoe does take the Race of Champions champion of 2024. Both drivers would have deserved it, but Lahoe better on the day, better in a wider range of cars, and I think it just played perfectly into his hand, not letting that MX-5 loss get to him too much. And I think Stevens there, after that mistake on lap 1, was pretty much in an unrecoverable position, even with the mistake of Alex Lahoe. But once again, very deserved for both drivers, and I think Lahoe has done a very good job there.
And according to Remco de Zeeuw, Alex will actually be getting a physical trophy for that as well. So rather than his virtual trophy cabinet expanding, I think his real life trophy cabinet will need a little bit more space as well. But a very deserved champion is Alex Lahoe, and we can actually talk to him now. I didn't know we were doing interviews today, but why the heck not, I guess. Alex Lahoe, congratulations.
Hello, guys.
Hello, how are you doing?
Well, I'm trying my hardest to contain my excitement, for sure.
So, Alex, what matters more, this or the Superlights Championship?
I don't know, man. Super Ice Championship, obviously, because it's over the span of a few months, and you need to keep the motivation going. Whereas here, you just need adaptation skills and a lot of free time, and you need to have a job that starts at 4 a.m. Helps a lot as well.
Yes, indeed. No, I was joking with that, but that's still not the answer I wanted. This one matters more. You all know it. You are, of course, officially the GPVWC Champion of Champions for 2024 now. And yeah, congratulations for doing that. What a race with Tom Stevens, though. You had to do it over a variety of different cars. Do you have a favorite car that you drove today?
Oh yeah, definitely. Favorite car was the Caterham. Just to how smooth you have to drive it in order to be quick. And the second best would be the Ford, to be honest. Same thing, pretty much. You have to get the slip angle just right to get the maximum rotation. And good cars to drive. I don't know, but on this track, they felt great. They felt absolutely great. And congrats to Tom for giving a huge battle to me today and just clearing his opponents along the way.
And I've just been told you're apparently getting a physical trophy for that as well. I mean, I haven't had it confirmed by Menno, but Remco says it's confirmed. So, are you ready for that?
Yep, because Jake last year got it.
Yes.
He got a trophy. So
I
I knew something was on the
didn't know
line, so I cancelled the league race to come here and.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
commented it
absolutely
last
worth it.
year, and I didn't know he got anything for it. But yeah, congratulations, Alex. That was a lot of fun, and you can absolutely call yourself a winner for that. Well done.
Thank you guys. I will
Go
probably
and
see you
party
in
now.
other events, and I'm going to first of all take a shower.
That's a good idea.
I forgot to
and
ask
then
you.
go to bed.
I forgot to ask you. What are your plans for next year? What are you doing?
Super League.
Heck
Mhm.
yeah! Well, I'm very much looking forward to seeing you racing in that. Do you have a team?
Yeah, I know the team, but I will keep it a secret. Only
Aw,
those
that's
who know will
boring.
know. Boo, boring.
Okay,
Boo.
well, you're absolutely ready for Super League, and I think you're going to be a championship contender, so no pressure.
Oh my god, I'm being overrated now.
Commentator's curse time.
Yeah, about to finish P7 in the standings. Let's go.
I mean, P7 is pretty good, actually.
We'll quote you on
I'd
this.
settle for that.
I will take it actually,
Yeah, I'd settle for that.
but
You know.
for some reason I got issues with this wheel. The steering wheel is not recognized anymore.
Oh, okay. Well, I hope you
Oh,
get
sure.
that
Happened
sorted out.
now and not before the event.
Yeah.
I was trying to bind a button for the clutch because I don't have a clutch pedal, and the NASCAR was the car that I was scared about the most because I couldn't launch it. I had to spam a button on my wheel, and I wanted to try to find a dead zone to get a good launch. But I guess that works.
Well,
I'll try to, yeah.
join the club, I'm afraid. My brake pedal doesn't work, so I've had to bind my clutch pedal as my brake pedal, and my clutch is now on my steering wheel. So that makes two of us, my friend.
Average G29 user.
Yes, indeed.
The brake pedal on the G29's infamous, but also
Yeah,
I can't imagine using the clutch pedal as the brake. There's just no resistance. It would be horrible.
Oh, trust me, it's better than the brake pedal on the G29. You have to use the clutch pedal as your brake pedal.
Yeah.
Actually.
Well, considering my brake pedal only goes to about 85%, I will take the clutch any day. But yeah. Congratulations, Alex, and thank you for talking to us as well. I genuinely wasn't expecting interview today. We didn't even have the interview screen prepared.
Oh, that's unlucky.
Yes.
that's unlucky. All right, I will be going because I really need to make the most of the rest of my minutes left to sleep.
Okay.
I will leave the terrain to Tom. See you guys and have fun.
Yeah. Good night,
Yeah.
Alex. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Alright guys, so that's all we've got time for today, but thank you all very much for tuning in to the 2024 Race of Champions. Congratulations to Alex Laho, and also thank you very much to everyone else who was involved in this race. Menno Klont did most of the work behind the scenes, he was fantastic. The intro you saw at the start was actually made by Shimon Frelich. That was made specifically to be used by last year's Race of Champions event, although we didn't get a new intro for this year, so we used Shimon's fantastic intro once again, and the only problem was that it said the wrong dates on it. But anyway, thank you to Shimon Frelich for making that. I still think it's excellent. Thank you to Remco de Zeeuw for streaming this event, and thank you as well to Alex Foulkes for jumping in alongside me. Alex, do you have any last words for GPVWC 2024?
Well, that's a perfect way to cap off a very exciting year in all series. But I do want to point out our series, Formula Sprint 2, was the most watched average series. So thank you as well for that.
I think that's down to the commentary team, in all honesty, but there you go. Anyway, as I said, thank you all very much for joining us, and we will see you again in 2025. Take care.
Bye bye.
Merry Christmas.